TV a second. We do have a quorum, so we're going to get started with the meeting. It's July 13th. It's just a little bit past 7:30. First order of business at this planning board meeting is an A&R sponsored by Ducharme and Dillis, 48 Meadow Road. It sounds like it's ministerial in nature, so Erica will give us a little something.
So just to recap what Brandon talked about at the last meeting, this is 48 Meadow Road, parcel B. They want to take from this new lot 4A and add it to new lot 2A, specifically for, I believe, a driveway. There's a common driveway in here.
Yep.
So that was for the driveway. And then the other piece of it was for parcel A here. And that was actually just something that they needed to clean up. They had done an A&R previously for this, and it got recorded, but it never got reflected in the deed. So just to clean up some loose ends, they're putting it on this A&R, and it was to allow for this house to have the appropriate setback to the property line. So again, parcel A is being taken from new lot 4A and being added to new lot 2A. And that's essentially it. So the changes that we requested at the last meeting was to incorporate a locus map so we could see where in town it was located. This parcel here was being labeled as parcel, or lot 3, which was confusing because it made it sound like it was part of the lot change in the A&R plan. So they updated that and they included just the abutting.
What it is. Okay.
Yeah, the abutters information. And essentially that's it. And then you needed an electronic copy and they sent that. So I think we're in good shape.
Okay.
Hello.
I think we were fine with the last meeting. I was just getting the.
I heard the tape, but I didn't get to see it, so I just wanted to, give me a second. I'm gonna
Yep,
check this
no
out. This is the existing house, that's the old house, that's the well, existing garage.
This is what they're building here? Oh, no.
That's the septic.
Yeah, okay. I can see from there.
That's an existing house, why can't I picture that? Oh, is this the old house?
That's the other lot.
That's the old farmhouse and that's like the barn? No.
Meadow, this is,
So,
I mean, these are all set way back.
Yeah, you probably can't see either of these houses, I bet, in the road. I didn't drive by. but-
Slater's Restaurant, coming in, Chief Wilson's, taking a left. Old
Yeah, so this is,
farmhouse is
old,
what?
the old farmhouse and barn are here.
So what is it, this?
No, these are back.
Got it, not even on this,
Not
sorry,
here.
okay.
Yeah,
all right.
that's, down that way, Ken Troop's house is here.
Yeah. Okay, this is up the
that-
hill.
Yes,
Coming up
that's,
that
yeah.
hill. Okay.
So this is why. This is really
It's super
helpful
helpful.
looking for it.
Yeah.
It sounded like I was nitpicking before, but this really is helpful.
Yeah.
So.
I'm fine with it. Choose or thoughts?
So just the cleanup that we requested on the last.
That we had
meeting.
talked about, yeah, no, then as long as they kind of address that we talked about, then I'm okay.
Okay.
So they added all the additional information that we,
Yep, and took off what we wanted to add.
okay, yeah.
Be looking for a motion to approve the plan dated February 26th by Ducharme and Dillis.
So moved.
I'll
All those in
second.
favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries.
It's a selectmen's thing, just so moved. I typically haven't done it. That's fine. I hear you guys do that all the time.
Well, no, actually, we just usually, somebody actually makes the motion directly, and nobody asks for it.
Yeah.
Normally.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's fine by me.
So if you said to kind of get a motion to do X, then I might as well just say, yeah, just.
Let's do it. No need to repeat.
Exactly.
Making us more efficient.
I mean, if you just said, can I have a motion, then it would have been.
Yeah.
It's usually the rest of it.
Yeah.
We all stumble through it.
Yeah.
Get confusing with the bond reductions. They're like paragraph long.
Yeah, you'll see I'm not gonna do that.
that motion?
I did, yes.
Five of them? Mixed everything up already. I'm all out of order.
Oops, sorry. Well, I guess since yours aren't legible, I usually always write my name afterwards, but since none of yours are legible either, I guess I need to.
Well, we're doing that today, right, where we sign for the registry anyway.
Yes.
So they know who we are. They'll have our signature. So.
Gotcha.
Or we can wait till the next meeting, actually, since Michael's not here and John's not here.
Okay, do them all at the same time.
Whatever, yeah, whatever you like.
So, 7:45, discussion with two potential associate members, Adam Check and Peter Driscoll. You guys both here?
Yep.
Awesome. Our government is a volunteer one, largely. No pay and there's no prizes. And so when folks come forward, we're blessed and we're happy and we really, really appreciate it. It's,
You want to type them one at a time, or?
yeah, I think so. It's a,
You guys want to come up? Or whatever?
unique but cool opportunity that two people are here to fill one spot. So my thoughts are to hear a little bit from you guys, why you're interested, have you guys ask us questions, we can kind of talk about what the role of the board is, what we typically do. And then instead of our voting for one or the other of you, I think it makes a little bit more sense to invite you guys to come to future meetings. See if you like it, see what we do, kind of participate in it a little bit. And in theory, maybe one or the other looks at it and says, no, not for me.
Yeah, sure.
And if we continue to be blessed, then you're both into it and we can probably take a vote.
Yeah, or if, I mean, I don't know if you had plans, if you want to stay for this meeting, or just,
Sure.
just to know if you're interested or not, so we didn't have to vote, but I don't know, if you guys are both really interested, then eventually we'll have to.
We'll have to
It's a
get off our
good problem for
seats.
you guys to have.
No, it is. Often happens.
It doesn't happen very often.
I mean, if you look at our agenda, actually, it's a pretty good, kind of a sample of what we typically do.
Yeah.
So we had the A&R, up after this is the, Century Mill Estates, I don't know if you guys both know that development. So they're coming in to discuss, potential Saturday hours, so that's part of the, subdivision rules and regs, and they're talking about bond reduction, stuff like that. Then 8:45 is talking about a bylaw type stuff, and we write, and then we work on bylaws, and then talking about a construction development that's going on with Bolton Solar too, so, I mean,
It's a mix of administrative type stuff, ongoing residential subdivisions
yeah,
are huge business before us, and then the town has a process of vetting and issuing special permits for effectively anything that's a business or a limited business use. So a store wants to come through, or industrial now, right? And we'll ask questions and do some due diligence and have hearings where town input is gathered. So yeah, it can be contentious, it can be administrative in nature, it can be a mix of both, and legalese gets looped into it, where, as Eric said, we have a series of bylaws specific to planning that get added to, deleted sometimes, amended. And then once a year, we'll go before town meeting, and either, sometimes twice a year, and either talk about a specific project, or more often talk about bylaw, what we want to change, what we want to add, if there's a loophole that we want to clean up. It can be very exciting and contentious, it can be kind of boring at times, it can be a mix of the two. Talk to me, why?
And just the one other, I mean, and as part of the permitting and such, we also do some field trips out to the sites, and so there's a little bit of, it's not just sitting here, so it's a whole variety of different tasks that we participate in.
Talk to me about why you guys are interested, and any questions you might have about what we do.
Yeah, so me personally, I'm a relatively new resident of Bolton. We just purchased our house back in November of this past year. Thank you. And I've never been involved with town government before, aside from attending a couple of town meetings and stuff with my parents when I was growing up. And really, my interest in it is that I'd like to kind of learn about the process first and foremost. I'm not looking to become an activist at this time by any means, and recognize I have a lot of learning that I need to do, and I'd like to kind of understand the process more than anything, and then kind of start to get involved. That sounds
sorry. Which one?
I'm Adam Jack.
You're, okay,
Yes.
just want to change.
Sure.
The associate role is kind of a good way to get your feet wet in that sense. They have voting powers.
Yeah, so,
Well, there's not a
They
quorum.
participate.
yeah,
here.
if there's not five of us here, the associate acts just like a regular member.
Yeah, because I think all last year I was pretty.
John was never here, so,
Okay.
yeah.
We're a very open board, though. It's a matter of using expertise from folks, different fields. We've got engineers of different sorts. I'm in finance. John's a rock star.
John was that's why he's not here.
It takes different disciplines and different brain styles, I guess, to angle problems differently. I mean, they can be, the issues that we deal with can be technical in nature, where I defer.
And when they start talking about drainage, and she just starts talking in letters.
But a lot of it can be big picture type of stuff. Like our neighbors into XYZ is a special permit for a project going to contemplate something that's harmonious with the town, with the neighborhood, or totally off kilter. So it can be a good discussion about shaping what folks want to see in this town.
And it's good to have a variety of opinions and views.
Different types of things.
Because everyone's going to look at something a different way.
Mhm.
And that's what's nice about having a committee and board and
Yeah,
people from different backgrounds talking about it.
Yeah.
That's what it
How
says.
about you?
Sure. Pete Driscoll, thanks for having me. I actually have a very similar story to Adam. Moved to Bolton last October, my wife and family, so new resident. Also have not been involved in, town government or don't really have any knowledge of.
You've been in radio? Got a voice for radio.
I've actually heard that before. I haven't done that either. Much like Adam, moving to the town, I really love the town so far. This is the first place. This is my wife and I's first house. Moved around a lot in the past, 15 years. So first time I've been somewhere where I could see myself for a while, and kind of like to be involved in the town in some way. And when we're looking at the town, started looking at the website and seeing different opportunities, and then just saw this in the paper, and it seemed to be something that might be interesting to me. Much like Adam, I have no agenda. I understand there's a lot of learning that would need to be done. My background, I'm in the medical device industry. I'm a scientist, so I kind of have an analytical background. I like to research things, so I can see if there's a problem. I'm going to go out and do some research on my own and kind of figure that out. And in the medical device, it's a regulated industry, so we deal with like the FDA. And so I do have familiarity with understanding standards and following them, and also realizing there's a lot of gray areas that it's kind of a back and forth interpretation stuff. So I kind of get that would be part of this. So
That's certainly part of it. Yeah, there's lots of policies are meant to be interpreted.
That's
We
where
certainly
legal
have
counsel
policies
too.
that are. Yep. What do you guys have for questions for us? If any, how minuscule or big picture?
Yeah, just from a big picture perspective, I'd love to hear just a couple of different opinions on kind of what your biggest, I guess, challenges or what are kind of the real issues that the planning board is working through right now.
Growth in town.
Yeah.
At the rate of growth in town, what folks want to see. I sense there are constituencies who appreciate and like the slower nature of our town. We don't have a big amenity base, and that in and of itself is an amenity for, if I had to guess, probably half of the town. And I think there's there's a growing population in town. Maybe it's younger folks, maybe it's folks who are newer to the town, who would like to see responsible development, rapid development, something in between. We live in a town where retail excursions and work is not really done in Bolton. If you want to go to the grocery store, you go in Hudson or Clinton. And so there certainly is a constituency of town members who want to see, maybe not a super Walmart, but maybe a place to grab a gallon of milk or a little bit more. So finding that balance, striking that balance is something that we try and do every time we have an application. We have permitted, I don't know, 3 or 4 or so small businesses type of uses in town maybe over the past year. And we've got a pretty thorough, but I think effective process in looking at the applicant, looking at the application, looking at the use, looking at the style and the design, and doing something that fits into the town.
So I don't know if you've been following, so we've been doing small business, but actually there's a potential big project coming, which, will have a lot of voices, I'm sure. This is a potential gas station on the corner of 495 and something.
Right.
But then also, like you said, growth. I mean, like we're dealing with Central Mill Estate, which is 80 houses, and there's, potentially in the future other subdivisions, so. I think that's a good word, dealing with growth and planning, planning the future. I know we have like a mobility committee, so we kind of take that into account, kind of just taking into account what Bolton is and trying to guide the development of the future, I think.
We had a former member and chairman who reminded us that our town is something like 50 or 55% built out. When you think about it in that context, there certainly is a lot of how do we want to shape the balance of the development of the town.
Which is a big balance, yeah.
Yep, and that's not really even probably taking into account the Sugar Road type developments.
Sure.
Yeah, so.
I can understand people move to Bolton maybe for a specific reason of the rural character and how to preserve that.
It's a balance.
Yeah.
It definitely is. So that's a challenge, but I think it's fun. I think the best part is you get a lot of interested, sometimes adamantly so, but I think it's great, folks out into our meetings voicing their opinions. We try to do a lot of listening. I think it takes a little bit more time, but I think it's pretty important.
So I think you said associate's a good position because it's kind of just voted on by us. It might be joint with selectmen, I'm not sure.
It is appointed, it's appointed with.
It's appointed. But Danielle was our associate last year, and it's kind of the progression to move up. And, even if we only pick one of you guys, the other one can, if one of us leaves, it could kind of rotate in, or the other person could try to run against us in May.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, there's going to be a couple positions running in May.
There's 2, yeah.
Yeah, so you can try to kick one of us off if you want.
What else? Any other thoughts, questions?
No, that gives me a pretty good idea. I mean, just logistically, it's meeting every 2 weeks, and then how much time in between, that kind of stuff.
Except for, correct me if I'm wrong, except for July and August and November and December, it's 2 meetings a month. 2 meetings. But usually July, August, and November, we just have 1 meeting a month.
Okay.
Is that about right?
And then the week before, we'll get like a packet for whatever's coming up,
Yep.
whether it's special permits or A&Rs.
Basically, that's to review
Emails
ahead of
and,
time.
yeah.
Sure.
Eric has said many times, I think it's right, it's beyond the obligations of once every other week and once a month during the summer. It's whatever you want to put into it. Erica will communicate very well with us, typically by email during the week in between meetings. And because of open meeting laws, we're not all speaking as a group, but she'll disseminate information and we'll ask her questions or have a dialogue that way. And a lot of time and effort can be spent if one wants to put that in.
Yeah, and you can either kind of float along potentially, or you might have an issue that you want to drive to the board.
That's another thing, yeah. I mean, folks can have missions. Look, I think this is a deficiency in your code. I think this is a deficiency in the way the town is planning. I, as a member, want to take on a task of the next year, potentially put something into that town meeting for that upcoming year. That's welcome. Yeah, it's what you want to put into it. That's what it is. Most things.
So I guess, we're welcome you to stay for this meeting, but if you have other plans, that's fine. If you both are still into it, email Erica and we'll just decide, I guess.
Yeah, I'm definitely still into it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't stay for the balance
No,
of the
that's
night.
fine. We're not holding, you weren't planning for it,
That's fine, but yeah, absolutely, the next one I'll be sure to attend.
Excellent. Thank you both for your interest. Very much. It's very, very appreciated.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great meeting
I'll
you.
do both 2 years ago.
Oh,
I'm very similar to both you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
If you want to do some of the registration stuff, if a butter's, I'm going to give that a chance over here.
Sure, would you like to,
If we can. I don't rush it.
I think that's very doable. Why don't we do the design review board appointments? That's easy enough. So we need a motion to appoint Michelle Tuck, actually, I can give you this list, I'm sorry, I should have written it on there. Marshall McKee, David Pettit, Jonathan Keep, and Daniel Spicer.
My only question, so I asked you this in email, I'm not sure if it was to the whole board, but Jonathan can be on another board as a selectman?
Yeah, it's under the design review criteria section of the zoning bylaw. It states basically who can be on the board, and it essentially says that any board member can be on it. So that includes board
I
selectmen.
mean, I was under the assumption that selectmen could only do that.
I asked the same question to Don, and I didn't hear back from him on it. I mean, my only concern there is, the selectmen get a separate vote for the site plan review, so he's not getting 2 bites of, two chances to get his.
I mean, we do, planning board members could be on, right?
Yeah.
So, I guess as long as it's not, I'm not against it if it's not against any.
I mean, if you're concerned about it, I can also ask Dawn. I talked to the town clerk about it, and she agreed with me, but I can certainly
Yeah,
ask
well,
Dawn.
I mean, I don't want to, I'm just saying if it's allowed.
I think
fine,
you checked
I'm fine.
last year, because I had the same question as whether I could be on.
Planning board can definitely.
Selectmen's funky.
Yeah.
So, yeah, selectmen are kind of, well, selectmen are paid, so it's a slightly different,
Gotcha.
I mean, if there's nothing against it,
We're
I'm
not
fine.
paid here?
you're paid in the love of the town.
But yeah, I mean, if there's nothing against it, I'm all for it. I just,
Yeah, I had to have the same concern, but.
I mean, I know advisory can't be on other boards.
Right, but I think that, I know that's
sort of-
specifically spelled out.
Yeah,
Is there a timing and expiration that we're up against, or could we
We
defer?
certainly could push this to August if we felt.
well, we could do everybody else. I don't know, unless it's not a rush.
Why don't we do everyone but Jonathan, just in case
Okay.
Global moves forward, and that way.
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
not
yeah.
that in place.
Yeah.
Okay. Look for a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Michelle Tuck, Marshall McKee, David Pettit, Danielle Spicer, to the Design Review Board.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
I'll abstain, I guess, because it
Aye.
doesn't really make sense for me to tell myself.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And with, I mean, I'm fine with Jonathan as long as there's no rules against it.
I'm surprised he has the time to do both, but.
Yeah, right.
Want to do the magic appointment?
Sure, so I am the representative for Magic, so if there could be a motion to appoint me, that would be good.
Make a motion to appoint Erica Urati to the Magic.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Now it's 8 o'clock.
Signatures now, or
Next meeting,
wait
I
till
guess.
Monday?
Yeah.
Okay. Is Fred Kuhn and Fred Hamway here?
Yes. Sorry.
No worries. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Very well.
Good evening.
Fred?
How are you?
Very well. So, 8 o'clock, Century Mill Estates, 3 requests. Out of respect for your time, Mr. Hamway, I want to jump around. Let's do bond reduction, then talk about lot releases, and then we can talk about Saturday construction.
Yeah, we can do that one last.
What's that?
We can do that.
Do which one last?
Saturday construction.
Yeah, that's my thought. Start on a different-
Right, so the phone-
I think you know the answer for me, I'm just saying. There you go.
So, we have a request for bond reduction. Wasn't here last meeting, but I did review the tape. It sounded like some more work was going to get done, so we wanted to kick it out and wait until this meeting. It also looked like there were discrepancies with the bond reduction number.
How much the town was holding.
Okay.
We found it, called Erica about it, and then our bookkeeper and Erica figured out the number and everything.
So you met Erica with them on Monday, was it?
Yeah, I met with Eric.
Okay. You feel pretty strong about the number itself?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
We are in agreement.
Okay. So last meeting, we did what? We released 2 lots? And the request is for the, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but the request is to release the balance.
I'm willing to do less than that, but there's some particular ones that I need to move forward on.
Are more
Those are
critical than others?
buyers, so-
Okay. Let's talk first about, I mean, I assume you do, but whether you agree with the numbers in, I guess, the schedule, that's the basis of the bond reduction? You had a chance to review it, do you feel comfortable
What
with it?
has happened over the course of time, it started out with GCG doing the bond estimate. And I reviewed it and so forth, and that went on 2 or 3 rounds. And when it started getting down there, it didn't make sense to have a third party being them, and if that's all they were doing was
Okay.
going out and saying, this is done, and then I was saying, yes, it's done.
Yep.
So I've been doing the last few, maybe 4, maybe 3 or 4 or something like
Okay,
that.
all right.
So, yes, I do. The reason why it got, 2 reasons why it got changed.
Thank you for that, because I didn't know that.
Okay.
It helps me.
2 reasons why it got changed. One is the board had asked for more time to look at it than just the day of the meeting.
Okay, all right.
2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Second reason was I had wanted to add in 2 things that was going to be done, going to be done, going to be done. And that was the inverts and the manholes, the brick inverts and the oil gas traps and all the catch basins. So that got added. And between now and 3 weeks ago, they thought they might get some of that done. So,
Yep, okay.
so it's a matter of won't add it in. It might get done, so it'll come back to where we were
Okay,
3 weeks ago.
okay.
Because of other circumstances, one of them, being oil gas traps, did get done by a statement from what I have an idea, but I haven't inspected them yet for
Yep.
certainty yet, to understand.
There's some other things he wants to check, like mud around the
Yeah.
pipes and some other stuff, so.
And the inverts haven't completed, so they got back, put on.
Some are done.
We did physically get
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
Okay.
So, and that's where it comes out to the 102, 245. You
Okay.
have in front of you.
We had a list emailed to you a week ago on the 6th.
Yes, and then Erica, Fred, and I sat down in the office and put stuff in order of priority.
Good.
And we've been working on, everything that was supposed to be done by this week has been completed, but some of them, Fred needs to inspect, like the oil and gas traps.
Then let me go through.
Yeah.
I don't
Can we go
think
through them?
everything- This is the list after our meeting, after our Wednesday meeting.
Yes.
This is it, writing it. Right.
This a week
That was
old.
the.
Right, this is last Wednesday, so.
Yep.
And this is her recap of the meeting and with the timelines you put.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
And
what this is.
it was very helpful for me. It kind of prioritizes it. It shows what should be done by now. Remove the loom from the 1,000-foot wetland buffer near lots 42A and 44A.
That should have been 100 foot, but.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that was pretty big.
Okay.
She's changed, and you talked about earlier about changing the rules, and she's
Yeah.
already done.
Sorry about that.
Done, almost done?
That far away, and you know what it is, the stakes and all behind.
Stakes,
Right.
right.
It's I can't say it's 100% done, but it's just,
There was a miscommunication about,
and it's a small thing, but still has to be done.
Okay.
What portion still has to be done?
They staked in front of they didn't stake the hay bales, they staked in front of the fence, not behind it.
Oh, okay.
So if all the physical work's been done, you need 10 more stakes or whatever, cleaned up, the wattles are cleaned up, it's back, the fence is back in line, the hay bales are there, but
stakes are on the wrong
the
side.
last 10 minutes of the work isn't done
Okay, okay.
for miscommunication.
Replace silt fence and wattle along the toe of the swale near lots 42 and 44.
That's the same thing.
That's the same thing.
Okay. Remove sand at the head wall of the outlet of detention basin 9C.
That's been done, but there is silt still in that.
In the riprap spillway.
Right. On my report, that part has been done, but the silt removal hasn't been.
How big of a task?
I don't do it, so he has to do it.
About an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's,
But Andy's had everybody tied up with Fred all day on the access road.
Okay.
I've been living,
No.
we've all been living there.
Yeah. We've all
Fred, is
been
that
camped out.
Is that just the silt that's at the riprap of the outlet, or is there still silt in the basin as well?
Still in the basin, I think that's a separate item. I think.
I don't know that I have it in there, so those two things
Okay,
should.
can you
both
read
be
that one
addressed.
again? I'm sorry.
Remove sand at the head wall of the outlet.
See, now see quickly if we have it as the other part.
Third one.
Yeah.
Third that I got highlighted.
I'm looking for something else.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't think I have it in there.
Okay, what we ought to do is add to that one, because there's silt in the basin.
From where the fill piles were dropped on the high side of the pond.
Right.
Yep.
And from where it eroded down, that I mentioned to you.
Yep.
So in that same item, that's the same detention basin on the outlet is what she's talking about.
Okay.
Erica has this on the riprap. In the basin itself, the half of it closest to Old Stone Circle has layer of silt in the bottom that has to be removed. That
Okay.
came down from the bale that cleared lots above it over different rainstorms and the side silt.
Recently or over the course
No,
of
it's been,
the month?
yeah, at least. And but more came down on the bare slope of it, and it got seeded last 3 weeks ago today, right?
That's about correct.
The Tuesday,
weeks, yeah.
yeah.
How big of a task to finish?
2 guys, 4 hours.
Okay. Installation of gas traps into the catch basins of Old Stone
They've
Circle.
been installed but not inspected.
Who inspects of you?
Fred
Yes,
does.
yep.
Okay. When do you go out there next?
It's not, the problem is they have the silt sacks in them.
Okay.
So you
In
can't,
order to, it's easy enough that without them, you look in and see them, but now we have to take every silt sack out, and it's a major thing for the numbers. I suggested, and it's up to him as far as bonds, next bond reduction goes, I suggested when next time they are cleaning the silt sacks, that they lets me know, when they
They were
clean
all
them, I'll just
cleaned
look at them
when
that
the
way.
gas traps were.
So,
It's just a project to do it,
It's a
Okay.
day. It's a
compared
whole
to
day
me
with
just
two
going
guys.
out in an hour and looking at it.
okay.
you forgot that sweep
Yeah.
roads with water and remove.
No, I'm doing this strategically.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Clean and maintain swale at lots 50A through 54A.
We had set out a time frame of, I believe, 30 days on that.
Now, aren't there timeframes on this?
That's for
Oh,
this month, but it
Okay.
was an item that Erica felt was
Right.
important, and
It's minor accumulation. It's from when another builder built on a lot up at the end of the road. He didn't protect it. There's a lot we sold. They go clean up the mess.
It's not a large amount, but it's there. It's
Okay.
very small.
Like a blower should take care of it. But we've had everybody camped up at the access
Access
do
road.
we need a month to do it, or is it something that could be done in the next few days?
A few days downtime producing the gravel that needs to be tested for Fred, so I'll be able to free up my laborers, but everybody's been there at the end of the access road. So
Okay,
we should be able to get that cleared up pretty quickly.
When do you
Okay.
think you're gonna have some downtime?
Next 3 days.
Oh, the next 2 days,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, we're gonna be crushing material tomorrow and Friday, so that frees up my 2 laborers to go take care of stuff like that.
there are other items on this list, and there are timetables set out, and I don't need to labor through them unless other folks want to talk about them. One of the issues that we talk about all the time is sweeping the roads, and I don't know what more we can do, but we need to get you to sweep them constantly. I know you sweep them and they get dirty right away.
They do.
They need to be swept constantly.
They weren't really, I don't think they were swept yesterday, at the end of the day. But I left with you and who's the first one?
I was there till 9:30 at night.
Okay, but who was one of the first ones on the site today?
You and me.
And they hadn't
I was
been,
there from 6:30 to 9:30.
they
so-
hadn't been,
How much of the site is still not stabilized?
it's house lots, and as they work, that's what it basically comes down to.
It does.
As they're, one of the first house lots on Old Stone Circle on the right of the other third one now
Yeah.
is a staging area for crushing and so forth. That also, that driveway just got paved.
It got paved, and next to it is the leaching field that was just installed with the slope.
It's right near the road. So that does it. Now up past the culvert on the right,
Hydro seeded next week,
That one bothered me so good.
then up on the right past the culvert 27
27.
is an area that's had trucks coming in and out today, but not the next few days, and 3 days later.
And there is a riprap entrance installed at that.
But it's still
access
tracking,
point.
and, it doesn't, the riprap helps a lot, but there's still tracking on it. So it's different lots that are being worked on, site work-wise, not foundation. That now has a foundation, didn't it?
27 does not, but we are
28.
putting the rest of the trees on.
Does 28 have it?
29.
29, okay.
They're pouring the foundation 29 tomorrow.
So it's those lots sort of
All
combined.
together, yeah.
And
27 through 30.
it's one of those things, it's leaving those sites is tracking.
I believe at every access point, we installed the angular stone riprap entrances that you're required. to
Yeah, the
install.
question
It
is
just-
just,
It eliminates a majority of what is being tracked out, but it's not 100%. I mean, you're never gonna get 100% dust and dirt off of a truck.
no, I guess, but if it's, I mean, the more unstabilized area you have, the more you're gonna have runoff, any kind of rain, so the more of it going into the roads and.
On next Wednesday, we're clearing the trees on 27, and then we'll start filling it, which will help us to compact and stabilize and get grades set, not just rough piles of fill that are.
And the thing that's contributing to it is some of those lots we're talking about, for the most part, are almost clear cut.
They are.
Yeah.
So you have lots that are
Yeah.
completely bare from
I
sideline
mean,
to
is it-
sideline, and almost front to back.
That's right.
And are they being completely disturbed like through each day, or is it possible to
No,
even potentially
it's-
stabilize
varies.
portions of it,
Like
or?
once a week, somebody's in there. I mean, this week
Yeah.
we dug a foundation hole, set forms.
So when you're not doing work in it, it's just sitting there completely bare?
Completely bare, but it runs through woods before it gets to the pond. But the problem is the fill we brought in to raise that lot and level it up is sitting, and that's where the silt came from, into the pond. The tree cutters are coming out to cut the trees in that lot next week. They said it'd be 2 to 3 days from today. So it'll be like Monday, Tuesday. We'll get those cleared. They went to strip, stump, get it down to subgrade, and then we can start filling it. And then once that's done, we can start getting a house up there, so.
The bare lots themselves aren't contributing due to runoff to the road.
That's right.
It's when trucks are coming out.
The majority of
That's
it's
when it
the
is,
trucks,
yeah, right. The runoff isn't taken into the roads, it's
No,
the
it's
tracking.
It's-
cross-country flow and
Okay.
then swale redesign we did is in that
Parallel
area.
to the road, not perpendicular.
All right, so it's not necessarily the
No.
lots, it's the trucks.
It's that whenever, and so today they have it, and now trucks won't be using it until Tuesday, so it varies.
Right,
That's what he's saying.
right.
But it has to,
Both
the
sides
biggest thing
are
is
correct.
it has to be swept with the water also, and the gutters clean as we talked about, and the curbing.
Yeah,
But-
are you doing dust control? Is that?
We have
Sure.
water
You have
sprayers that are now
water sprayers.
operational on the sweeper.
But the town has received several complaints on dust being an issue out there, so
Okay.
we just have to be mindful of that and make sure that the water gets turned on. It's important.
Yeah, I mean,
sometimes,
July and August are the
It's
two
pretty bad,
very
yeah.
tough months for any construction site.
As far as dust goes.
Yeah, that's,
I mean, when they do sweep, it does create, if they're not using the water, it creates a lot of dust. It's not
What type
much
of-
on the road, but it's a.
What type of sweep?
what type of sweeper do you use?
Brochy broom.
Is it a vacuum sweeper or is it
No.
is it a broom sweeper?
It's a broom sweeper with water sprayers in front of the broom.
It's like a tractor with a big sweeper,
Yeah,
roll
like a
sweeper, I don't know,
7-foot
8,
wide
7.
brush and
but it just
6
goes.
jets.
It goes straight up.
And, you know, at times, as you say too, the operator might not have
Turn on the valve.
turned on the valve and
That happened the other day. We got started on that one.
I hate talking about the sweeper because we've talked about it a lot of times. My thought with the bond reduction is, I put a lot of faith in the number, it's audited by you. I don't have an issue with the reduction in the bond. The release of the lots, knowing that you need them, but knowing that these items are important to us. I'm happy entertaining a motion to approve the release of the lots that you're looking for, subject to your and Erica's being okay. 1, 2, 3, and skipping down, but cleaning and maintaining of the swale. Hearing you, those are some items that'll take hours, some items that'll take maybe a day or so.
That's correct.
They're all critically important and they all gotta get done, so
Can you review those items with me? I just don't have a copy of this paper. What the
we
numbers
will
are.
send you, I or Erica will resend you this email, but number them and
Okay.
highlight them for you. The ones I went through, removing the loom from the wetland buffer, replacement of the silt fence and the wattle, removal of the sand.
The loom has been removed, it's just the
Finishing out the.
It's gotta
finishing out the
be finished,
stakes
yeah.
and
It's
the.
whatever, I'm not gonna pretend.
that's probably the easiest thing on the whole list.
It is the easiest
Sure.
thing on the whole list, absolutely.
So-
And I understand that a lot of these other things, these are how we've treated them throughout the project, are items that need to get done in due course. So they're items that we'll monitor, but I kind of in my head put these in the category of stuff that needs to get done in the normal course versus stuff that is delinquent and it needs to get done. And so
Okay.
unfortunately, we've got a point of leverage and we need to use it because I need to get it done.
Okay.
So that's, well, what are your thoughts, guys? I don't want to speak for everybody.
Can I have that email tomorrow so I can start on it?
I would, you said, it's at 1, 2, 3, and number 7. I guess I would like to throw in there number 4. I mean, it's along the same.
What is for?
It's
Four is a
sweeping the road.
continuous thing, yeah, I mean, it just
Yeah, I
needs to be done all the time.
Yeah.
It has to be
cleaning
done all the
up.
time, and we started blowing the curbing off, which I think Fred noticed when he was out there. He said
It's
the
just,
curb looked good.
yeah, and I know it's an ongoing one, but it's an important one. I mean, you've got a permit that says that it needs to be done, so it's just one that I want to kind of have, I guess, include in there, understanding it's not going to be
That's fine.
completed because it needs to be
It'll be an
done.
everyday thing.
Yes.
The other thing on the curbing part, if the water's in use, it's very unlikely you're gonna have that settling back down.
I
It's
just
not flowing, you think it's flowing onto the
But
curb?
when you take the brush and you angle it
Okay.
to go up the road, it's kicking it up from the curb into the
And
grass.
they move the way into the middle, no?
Where do you go once it's in the middle?
Well, should go any place, should be collected and dumped.
It has to go into one of the entrances
Okay.
off the side of the
Okay.
road.
Okay, then the curbing still,
So we have to blow the curbing off after we sweep the road. It's the only way we can eliminate it.
Motion?
So
I
is
mean,
it contingent on 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7?
1, 2, 3, 7, and an understanding as to the ongoing importance to 4.
Okay.
David, is this, excuse me, I'm sorry, is
This-
this for the lot release or for the bond reduction?
Yeah, we should take it slowly. I guess there's a couple of requests here. My thoughts are that the bond reduction is fine based on Fred Hamway's figures, with the caveat, which I didn't mention, that we've got an outstanding balance due for the kitty for Fred of 11, Erica?
11,000.
Sounds right.
And there's police
And there's a
detail.
police detail of something like 1,600 and change.
I brought a check, so we'll do that.
We'll do it separately out of the number? For
Yeah.
both of those, or just for the,
Both of them.
Okay.
I'll pay for both of them then.
then it's, I guess it's simple. It's a
I wanted
pretty
to make
simple
it
motion.
simple. I didn't want to have us doing numbers. all night,
Contingent
so.
upon a check for 11,000 plus the amount of the police detail of 1,600 and change.
So-
I'd be comfortable reducing the bond.
So the number of 102, 245, that's the new number, right?
That's before the
Yes.
1.5 multiplier.
So that's on the second page?
So on the second page, you'll see the breakdown.
And what do you try to attack that?
All right, so just say approved bond reduction.
Yeah,
Don't go through all the numbers.
That's my thought. So it's a bond reduction that is subject to a separate satisfaction of the 11,000 and of the 1,600. And then we can talk about the lot releases
Contingent
subject
upon
to
those,
these.
okay. All right,
So just to be clear, are we
Can you get
using,
them, oh, sorry.
that's okay, the amount that's to be released, are we gonna use that to pay Amway and?
He said he has a check.
He's gonna pay
Oh,
the
separate, you're gonna have it separate.
As long as it's all done now,
That's, I don't,
care.
yeah, I don't care how
Yeah.
it's
They
done.
worked it out, I'll do it that way.
No, that's
Whatever
fine,
makes it
that's,
simple.
no, that's fine.
all right. So I will make a motion to approve the bond reduction as described in the work remaining estimate document from July 6th. Contingent upon them paying the 11,000 for Fred Hanway and 1,600 for police detail, and contingent upon Erica approving the fact that they did on the email sent July 6th from Erica Urati, numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And just for clarity,
Motion carries.
that 11 is not a hard number, that's projected out to August.
Yeah, it's a replenishment of the kit.
Right.
It's not a bill to be satisfied. Understood.
It goes from May, June, July, and August.
I don't know how long the lot release discussion is. I don't think it's right that all these people are waiting this long.
I wanted to get through all of that. No, and we just talked about the lot release.
Okay, well, so we have to approve the lot
Yep.
release. Is that a long discussion or no?
No, that, it's all tied into the same items.
Okay, so we just
Do
amend the
you
motion?
mind if I just chime in a little bit? on
Please.
that? There were several complaints in the last week with unloading of equipment on Spectacle Hill Road. So I think it would be advantageous of the board to maybe look at what lots are imperative to be released, what lots maybe we can wait on, because that really is, the only leverage we have moving forward. So I would prefer that we look at only releasing a couple of those and not the full amount. That would be my
Yeah, but
recommendation.
so what if?
To make sure that in the future that they're playing by the rules and that the police are being
Well, once
contacted.
those lots are released, what's to say it doesn't happen again? I mean, I don't want to be punitive just to be punitive.
It's up to the board, that's just my recommendation, so.
I have a recommendation with, there was one vendor in particular that the three occurrences came from.
All three?
All three
Okay.
came from the tree cutting company we hired, in which after the first incident, I reiterated to the owner and the supervisor that they need to have a police detail. They did it again, and then once again today. I'm proposing that we put in our contracts with our vendors a penalty if a call comes in or something like that. A monetary penalty, something that will affect them. If that would be okay with the board, I don't know if you want to impose it upon us or if you want me to impose it upon the vendor. However you'd like to do it. I'd like to, I don't like it any more than you do.
Well, I mean,
don't
you're
like
getting the
it.
fine anyway. You're getting the fine, right?
No.
We won't issue any
Oh, that's only when it's on the
citation.
main road.
No, they're only being fined when they're working outside the hours of operation.
So I-
Requirement.
Oh,
I mean, I'm willing to do, to work with you guys because it, loss of words, it irritates me just as much as it irritates you if they didn't listen to me. So I'd be more than happy to impose in all further contracts a clause or something that.
I don't know that,
But-
whether we can do that. We should look into that. Whether those monies can be accepted by the town, I
I'm not
I
so
have
much
no idea.
worried whether or not we accept, I don't even think we should accept the money. It's just a matter of, there needs to be some type of trigger that will make the subcontractor follow the rules. And I think if they know they're gonna be heavily fined, if they're not contacting the police, then it may work.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the police came and actually brought me and I brought them to the vendor today and explained to their supervisor the severity of what they're doing.
Well, I appreciate that. I think I'd rather, instead of a monetary fine, to say that if a vendor breaks that rule, the vendor doesn't work with you guys again. I mean, I'd rather solve
See
the
with that
problem.
is if they have a contract to complete a certain dollar amount of work and we terminate their contract based on a violation of that magnitude.
Then for you to say in your agreement, you have the right to terminate it. I'd like something to grab the attention. money is wonderful, right? But I'd like to, the problem is, trucks are unloading, it creates a safety concern. I'd rather find a way to stop that from happening. I appreciate your suggestion and knowing that.
I'm just trying to work with you.
Yeah, how do we triangulate against the problem?
Yeah, I mean, people not listening to me bothers me probably more than it bothers you. I mean,
It's really their ownership of the problem.
Yeah, you're the GC, you're the developer, you're the owner.
that's correct.
Yeah, and how you treat your subcontractors and what you put in the contracts, it's between you and them. It's
I
just-
know. Maybe
You
it was
you get called on the
inappropriate
carpet
for
when
me to
there's an
mention
issue,
that,
so if you want to simplify your life, then.
Yeah, maybe it was inappropriate for me to propose.
The
that.
reality
I was
of it
just
is
trying to
this,
help.
and maybe this is kind of a segue into the Saturday work conversation. Life is a two-way street and a relationship. And when you make our life as a board easy in front of the town, then we can be reciprocal. We have other projects. I have one right next to my house that has ongoing construction work, and work is allowed on Saturdays. And that's because that's the language of the special permit, and that language was never revoked because that applicant respected. There weren't issues. There weren't phone calls, there weren't complaints, there weren't emails. When we, as a board and as a town de facto, have the ability to look at a request to work on Saturday, and we've got the history that we've had at the project specifically working on Saturday, I'm happy to hear the opinions of anybody in the room, but I am not inclined to even hear that request. We can't do it.
I was asked to file it.
No, I understand,
I
I understand.
did
And quite
what I
frankly,
said.
for those who have signed an agreement, who live within the neighborhood, to say work can be done, I don't have no sympathy, but I have less sympathy. You're buying into an ongoing construction project. That's par for the course. But again, life goes into a bigger relationship type of a standpoint, where if that flexibility granted by the owners of the properties is given to the developer, it's got to be respected, or else it just doesn't work. And when there are voluntary type of conditions where folks can, permitting granting authorities can say yes or no, we're put in a position where on stuff like that, we have to say no. And so, happy to hear your opinions.
Well, that's, yeah, I mean.
I didn't want to hear the motion.
I mean, on the Saturday work and the agreement with the people that have purchased the development, that's great. There's a lot of people that surround the development that.
That's where I'm going.
That
That's the
have
second.
not signed that similar agreement and are significantly impacted by the work there, so.
I completely,
Yeah.
and that's one of the reasons I wrote in the permit that no crushing, no hammering.
No,
things that
and
create
I get
noise.
that, but that type of flexibility, that type of reciprocal relationship, it's not open right now for that type of stuff. So, yeah, I have lots of sympathy for folks who live on Spectacle Hill Road, for folks who live on Century Mill Road, who have been patient at times and understandably impatient at other times when the noise is ongoing and the dust is ongoing.
And I did speak about the blasting. You asked for us to be neighborly, and we're more than willing to put up sandwich boards, do all those things that you had asked about, even though the blasting technically doesn't fall within the
That's helpful.
required.
I heard that comment.
We're willing to do it. I mean, there's no problem. with
It only helps repair a relationship.
So,
I think that helps
I just wanted
you.
to tell you, I brought it up, and we're fine with it, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, on that, could you send an email to Erica, and if people email Erica that to get put on some list that she can forward it?
Absolutely.
On that, and I know we haven't voted on the release of lots, but I don't want to ignore the folks in the audience. If folks want to give an opinion or talk and be heard, then we're certainly willing to listen. Please state your name and where you live.
My name is Stephen John Garner. I live on 42 Spectacle Hill Road. Many years past, I've met Andy listening to his Saturday and Sunday and holiday. Very, very chagrined to go over the stone wall and see that he was actually operating that equipment for the last time. But anyway, and I also have the pleasure of living directly across, not only hearing and seeing, but the rock crushing machine. It's such a sweet thing. Just love it. As a matter of fact, I wake up having bad dreams when I hear any kind of equipment at all, because I think these guys are running it. My name is Stephen John Garner. Ray St. Martin wrote a letter. He made 11 points in the letter, and When he read it, I felt that it represented myself and probably a lot of the people that live outside of Century Mill Estate. So I'd like to take a quick second and read it. And I agree with everything in it. There's one comment that I know nothing about, but he put it in here. I'm going to read it. Please read the following statement on my family's behalf, as I may not be able to attend the meeting due to work travel. This request should unequivocally be denied. Reason number one, safety. In general, and certainly on weekends, CME and the surrounding families have the right to use and enjoy the outdoors, hold barbecues, have their children play, ride bikes, go for walks, etc., without concern for construction, traffic, or added traffic income. 2, history of the construction. One of my favorites. It has never, in caps and quotes, been limited to 1 or 2 areas of development. Nothing will convince me that it will be moving forward. Large trucks race from one end to the other of the development. From 1 week, moving fill from one location to the other, only to have it be brought back the next week or the next day. There is no logical construction plan that I can see. 3, history of defiance. The developer had years, parentheses, caps, where construction activity went on not only on Saturdays, but Sundays, holidays, all holidays well past 7, even 8. I had Christmas dinner listening to a backhoe in 2013. I listened to a jackhammer all day, almost every Saturday and Sunday, long into evenings for 3 straight months because the developer refuses to spend a few days blasting instead. I've had things fall off my wall on that one. Historically, the developer and his personnel have pushed the limits on each and everything. Routinely, machines shut down at 5:15, 5:20, when they're supposed to stop at 5 o'clock. Loading and unloading equipment on main roads, etc. Dust and debris. This one will be quick because you guys covered it pretty well. Anyway, the developer never uses a water feature, which would control the dust from the sweeping activity. We've had tables of food ruined during backyard family dinners by dust clouds that plume across our yard. Dealing with it 5 days a week is plenty. We don't need to deal with it 2 additional days. Noise. There are upwards of 25 families living in or near the development that want peace and quiet 2 days per week. I believe that's more than fair. Trespassing. I've witnessed construction personnel enter and pass through my property and my neighbor's property without notice or recourse. Another day of this is not wanted. 7. This one I don't know about, but it's in here, I'll read it. Questionable hiring. I have proof and can provide it that the developer has employed convicted criminals. I do not want convicted criminals around my family or my neighbors' families on weekends where there tends to be a little bit more freedom to let your kids be kids and roam the neighborhood. I don't care what the sentiment might label me in the eyes of someone else. It's important to me and the safety of my family. 8, unfinished homes. Partially built homes, 2 directly next to me, have sat partially finished for years, literally more than 2 years. Why does the developer not focus on completing those homes before focusing on other parts of the development? 10, numbers. Numerous residents do not want this. Why rule in favor of a non-resident on an entirely unnecessary request? 11, financials. All the residents of CME pay full and high real estate taxes. We signed up for this and happily pay them. We love this town to the point where many of the residents in CME donate incredible amounts of time and money to various town and school causes. The development currently generates about $17K in taxes annually per household in CME. That's close to $450K total currently and growing. Our roads are not plowed, our mail is not delivered, our speed limits are not recognized. Please let us have peaceful weekends. In conclusion, while I am living, breathing human being on this planet, I will do everything humanly and financially possible to prevent weekend, holiday, early morning, and evening construction activity in Century Mill Estates. Right on, Ray. I've added a few neighbors that were not listed in the original email, and I have emailed addresses to them as well. Please forward to anyone else that lives in the CME, have a safe and wonderful or peaceful 4th of July. Ray St. Martin, 37 Mill Pond Road. Thank you for allowing me to read the letter. It echoes my sentiments exactly. To the point where I just want to reiterate his statement about that it's financially possible to prevent it. Because I heard about weekend construction and everything. We paid our dues. We paid dearly, dearly for well over 3 years. We don't want it on the weekends. No one around us wants it on the weekends. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Sure. Yeah.
Okay, Ray St. Martin signed an agreement allowing us to work during specific hours, including weekends. So the fact that he brings some, I'm not saying some of those points aren't valid, and I'm not trying to cause an argument in any way, shape, or form, but the areas in which we actually to work, I would like at least the opportunity to present a plan showing that they're at least a quarter mile to a half mile away from any other resident outside the development. I'm not asking to work near or in the backyards of anybody, and when I did make the request, I requested no hammering, no crushing, and no trucking during that time. So
May I respond? May I respond?
Respond to the board, not to the applicant.
May I respond to the board? Forget that Ray St. Martin's name is on this letter. It echoes the sentiments of Stephen John Garner, A. B, we have heard all of the things from Century Mill. Everyone who lives outside the perimeter of Century Mill. 2 statements, the history of Defiance and the history of the construction. I don't care what they want to do. Hammer, not hammer, maybe, I don't care. I don't need it, I'm tired of it. I pay taxes in this town too, maybe not as much as the people in CME, but I don't want it. So forget that I mentioned Ray St. Martin's name. Because everything in here echoes Stephen John Garner, 42 Spectacle Hill Roads. And I don't trust anything that CME does, says, or promises. It's been recorded, as you all know. Thank you.
Thank you for your perspective. Do we have differing perspectives from folks?
My name is Christine Peters. I live on 12 Spectacle Hill Road. My concern is safety first and foremost. I work for a large chemical company. Safety is our top priority always. And they don't follow the rules now. So I can't, and they can't seem to control their contractors for whatever reason. I don't feel that down the road they're going to be able to do this unless they put something in their contract that you mentioned, that if they do not follow these rules, they will not be welcome back. I mean, I understand if there's a contract in place right now for a site that it can't be broken because of financial reasons, but going forward, I mean, what's it going to take? Somebody to get hurt? I've seen these big equipment backing down roads without police detail for long distances, clogging up the road. I've not been able to get out of my driveway. I had to sit there and watch them move around till they're out of the way and I can leave.
Where are you, Spec Hill? or
12
Century Hill?
Spectacle Hill, right before the subdivision,
Up the hill or down?
down, just before it. So, safety is top priority in my book.
Thank you. Sir in the back, please introduce yourself.
Dusty Sheldon, Spectacle Hill Road, 63, at the top of the hill. The issue that I have, it doesn't necessarily pertain to Saturdays, but it's pertaining to this Monday. And I don't know how these people, why anyone would come up from Hudson with a rock crusher on a lowboy at 8 o'clock on Monday morning. And they did. So how do we not know what north and south is? I thought that no one was supposed to come with that type of rig. I don't know how they did it anyway. The guy had to be a miracle driver because from Hudson is bogus. He's got this huge vehicle, and Jake braked all the way down Spectacle Hill Road at 8 o'clock. Now, 8 o'clock in the morning, that's working hours, blah, blah, blah. But it would be, and I have breakfast every morning at 8 o'clock, and I see a parade of, and I don't want to say it's a parade, but at least once a week, we have a vehicle that's not appropriate for going north on Spectacle Hill Road. I thought they were all supposed to, everybody was supposed to go down South Bolton Road, take a right onto Spectacle Hill, and then into the project. And that doesn't happen. Now, obviously, it's not your fault. You didn't tell the rock crusher guy. I think that was a rock crusher, wasn't it, Monday morning?
It was a tree chipper, but it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It doesn't matter what it was.
Yeah, thing was huge. And Jake braked all the way down the hill, which I didn't think that was supposed to happen. But I see these kinds of large vehicles on a pretty consistent basis. And if we're talking about safety, sure, it's after the school, but not a heck of a lot after the school bus comes.
I have kicked drivers off our site. Anytime I get a phone call that they're going the wrong way, they're not allowed back on the site. Whether it's an
What's the
independent
issue?
contractor.
They don't understand it, or it's far more convenient for them? I can't
I
imagine that's the
think
case.
the issue 90% of the time
It's following a cell phone GPS.
It's following a GPS unit that
That's
takes them
exactly
in
what it
because they're not a regular driver.
Yeah, okay.
And they don't
They're coming
know.
in from Revere or wherever.
Wherever they're
They just
coming
follow
from.
But
the
it
GPS.
is on a consistent basis. I mean, it's at least, I would say, at least once a week.
We haven't been trucking fill in, but that's normally the drivers I have to kick out of our site, is from Lighthouse when they deliver fill to us. They're coming from Boston or
Is
Worcester.
it different drivers every time? Is it
It
kind of?
usually is. They subcontract it. We don't pay them. They don't work for us.
Yeah,
We're a
right.
designated fill site for them. So they bring their
It's
trucks.
new guys every single
And
time.
if a truck goes the wrong way, they're not allowed back on the site. That's plain and simple. That's clear cut with Lighthouse. If they don't follow the rules, they're out.
Who's the contract through? How do they know to show up? Who do they interface with? A new driver comes
They-
in from whatever
Lighthouse
location.
calls me and says, we have 8 trucks coming, 5 loads this day, delivering fill. Where do you
I think
want
you
it?"
need to make a serious effort to instill that knowledge in Lighthouse then. If they're the dispatcher, this shouldn't be difficult.
Yeah,
They should be able
we
to
don't have
provide
a contract with
directions.
them because we don't pay them.
You do with Lighthouse.
We don't pay Lighthouse. We're a designated fill site where they're allowed to deliver material. So we don't pay them. They just
Yeah,
call
but
us
they
when
call
have
you.
fill. They do call, they say, hey, we have trucks coming. I can reiterate. to
Make it
them.
clear to them. I think if you're making it clear to the driver doesn't know any better. The driver's coming in through GPS, the driver's never been to the site before, the driver's
That's
never
right.
been yelled at before, driver's coming in off of 495, that's the best way to go on paper. It's the worst way to go in reality, getting that big
is.
turn and coming across the town
That's a
line.
terrible way to go in any truck.
When you say you're designated fill site, can you explain that to me?
Yeah, their fill is tested as clean fill, and they have to take it to a designated site. So there's one in Berlin Woods, we're one of them. I wasn't around when all that paperwork.
So they're just trying to get rid of it, please?
It's fill that
That's how it
has
works,
come
yeah.
from one site to another. They have to take it out because they don't need it as site. It has to be tested, and then when it's designated clean fill, it's allowed to come to our site for fill.
But they're not paying, it's ad hoc, it's a service.
But is there a way for you to potentially refuse it, I guess?
Is there a way for me to refuse it?
Well-
Yes. I turned 8 trucks around today because
Because
they're
they
at the
were
wrong site.
Okay, so when,
They have paperwork that says where it has to go to.
when they had
And
the
the
wrong.
paperwork said Berlin Woods, and they came to us today, so I
Oh.
turned 8 trucks around this morning.
But I guess if they're using an incorrect route, could you potentially, refuse it as well, or no?
Can I say something about that? I would venture to say, you don't know every time whoever came, where they came from, which road they took.
That's correct.
Because
Okay.
I don't know where-
you have to be down at the beginning
Yeah,
to know
unless
they
you're
came from
standing
the north
out
or
there.
south. So, let's say 50% of the time, you won't even know, so you might be getting a quarter of them.
That's why I say, the interface has to be between the owner, developer of the
Yeah,
site.
it could be some
And-
trucks from here, some from Boston, and I don't know where they're coming from.
You need to
so-
interface with them and say, the town is at its wit's end. This is the clear, they will respect that. This is the clear instruction from the town. This is the way to come into the site. If not, the town's going to have issues with my permit. So it's your problem, Mr. Fill Company, you need to comply, because it's gonna be my problem, Mr. Developer.
I can definitely have that conversation.
I want to be respectful of time, we've got another application at this time, but I want to be respectful of folks who came.
So just that one quick, so that was that big, huge tree eating machine that's came, so was that the same guy, same contractor you had the problem with?
The 3 incidences that all occurred this week were with the same vendor, and I've
And that was the guy came down Monday morning with the little boy?
That's correct. Yeah.
recognizing we haven't taken our votes yet, and we're over our time. It's important to me that you guys showed up. So if other folks have comments, please.
My name is Mark Han. I live at 182 Century Mill Road. Just a brief comment and then a question. The brief comment is, I've got a good memory, and last year, when the request was made to do work on weekends, the request was because they needed to get work done prior to the winter.
You're correct.
And now the winter's over, but the request comes forward yet again. So I think that in terms of prioritization, concerns of the citizens and the people come over the dollars of what's being made in the process of building the site. So from me, it's a pretty clear answer as to which takes priority, especially because the reason that was given last year differs now from, well, we just need it because there's a lot going on and we gotta get it done. Well, that's what we heard before. But that's the comment. The question is, what is the current status for the agreement? Because my memory was it was precluded, but I heard you mention that there was an agreement which allows...
I can answer that. So the agreement that Fred referenced was addendums to the purchase and sales between the seller of lots within the community and buyers.
But nothing to do with...
That's correct, that's correct. The agreement that the town has with the developer is exactly what you recall.
Yeah, okay.
If work, these guys can request all good right.
So I don't need to take up more time.
Thank you.
I'd recommend against it, but not as a penalty or not for malice, but just because it seems like if we're all trying to live together and get something to happen, it's a financial concern as opposed to a neighborhood.
I'll take one more, please.
I'm Linda Crabtree. I'm at 60 Spectacle Hill Road. And my thoughts with regard to the safety is, I feel like the developer needs to take more responsibility for, with the fill guys, not only a phone call, but send a letter. You know, I'm sure you guys have an admin assistant or something that you can ask to have them send a letter and say, this is the situation. This is where all the drivers need to go, and you make sure that everyone gets that letter, not just a phone call. An actual letter that is signed. That's number one. Number two, with regard to the police, I think that, again, it's the onus of the developer to make sure that there is police detail. Because for them to follow up and make sure that all these different subcontractors, and I can imagine with a subdivision that large, that there are many of them, that the developer take charge of that, because it would be a real pain in the butt to ensure that all of these subcontractors are going to get that police detail. And I think that that's a lot of follow-up, so why doesn't the developer do it? They know when they're going to be coming into the subdivision, they've got a contract with them, they've got the schedule, so guess what? They call to get the police detail there, and then it's done. That's my thoughts.
Thank you. Fred, why haven't the details been coming lately?
It's only been these 3 instances this week, and it's because I had asked them to handle their own details.
You asked who to handle it?
The tree cutters. They're the 3 incidences we've had. It's all been the same company. And the agreement I had with them is because they didn't know when they'd be finishing on their jobs to come in and clear our lots because they weren't priority items. When their equipment freed up, they had to call to make the arrangements for the detail. And 90% of the details that we have are for our equipment going in for repair or for our equipment coming in as rentals or going out as rentals. So we schedule all those details. This was an isolated incident with one vendor because they didn't know what their schedule would be finishing up jobs for other contractors. When their equipment freed up, they wanted to bring it in. I told them, if you can't tell me a day, 48 hours in advance, you need to schedule your own detail. And that's
I think that's where you went wrong. I would have scheduled their detail for them, regardless. I think you have to. It's your site, and you're playing a funny role.
I'm not disagreeing with you. A lesson learned on my part. I should have taken that role, but I didn't have definitive dates.
Yeah.
And you know.
That's causing as much angst among community members as anything else, because that's a
I
safety
completely
issue.
understand.
A kid gets hit and it's no fun anymore.
No fun.
No. I'm not disagreeing with any of you. I completely understand you're upset about that, and
One other point on Saturday that's thought of is I won't be doing any inspections on Saturdays. So any work that, if it's allowed, any work that's done can't require inspections.
we're primarily asking to dig foundation holes, strip lots, stump lots at the very far end of the cul-de-sac.
I don't want to hear that request at this time. I don't want to hear it. Martha, I gotta keep on moving. We're 5 minutes late and we haven't taken a vote.
I ask when the next meeting, when these contractors will be present is, because I do have an unrelated question to the Historical Commission. A yes or no?
Related to the next piece of
Related
business?
to the development, whether or not the antique stone walls have been incorporated into their plan for the village of the 80 homes. Or they've been trucking those stones out. Just a yes or no.
I don't know what the, I don't know the answer.
Why don't you?
This was really early on,
I've only
that they
been
were
here 2
supposed to
years, so I
leave the
can't
stone
answer.
walls there, you know, to build them into the neighborhood.
Do you have an answer, Fred? If not, I gotta research it.
I've only been here since October 2014. All the roads that are there have been in or in progress. I don't have an answer. I
No,
know
these
there
are walls, the stone walls.
Martha, can you put it in email to
We'll follow
Erica?
up,
and-
I
but
can
I don't
definitely
know.
follow up
Thank
for
you.
you.
Okay.
I know there's stone walls all over the place. I just don't, I don't know which wall she's referencing. so
Okay,
I
all
can't
right.
answer.
Before I pass over Saturday, do folks on the board differ from my opinion? I don't want to just speak
Well,
for
do we
everybody.
want to pass over or do you actually want to vote on it? I just think we should vote.
So I think we should do a vote?
It sends a clearer message than just agreeing.
Then
to
I'm
it.
willing to hear a motion.
Okay, I will move that we permit the requested Saturday work. That's what the request is, we're going to vote on the request. Okay? Okay, the
All
second.
those in favor
Well,
say aye.
second.
Is there a second? He's moving.
I'm moving
There's
what
something
they're
in front of us,
requesting.
so he's moving it. He's not supporting it, he's moving
Right,
it. So
my
he's
support
asking if there's a
completely
second.
So you can say no on the record.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
second.
Okay?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Any?
Well, I don't understand what you're saying.
We always vote in the affirmative. He's asking for a vote.
The request was for, to allow them to
Oh.
work on Saturday.
Put it in.
Oh, I see.
I made that motion.
I got you.
And then we, so you can,
I got you.
okay.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
The motion does not carry. So the last piece of business before we can move on to our patient folks is the lot releases. My thought on this is to tie the lot releases to 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, similar to the bond reduction. But my thought is I'm okay doing all of the releases in one fell swoop, subject to all those caveats, and also for belts and suspenders, subject to the 11,000 and the 1,600. If folks differ, I'm happy to hear their opinions. That's what
Can I just understand which lots are comparative? Like the ones-
Imperative lots?
Like the ones
Yes.
you...
The ones that I need to get permits on right away for Myers Walk, those would be,
I had it clear, right?
jeez.
You confused me with motion to approve it.
Well,
Yeah,
but
I was like,
that
huh?
was, yeah.
Motion to approve it.
No, and that's what was being requested, so
Yeah, I got
it's
you.
easier to.
I thought you were gonna say,
Easier to.
I thought you were making a motion to deny, like, that's all.
You're listening carefully.
33?
35,
35.
36, and 43. Those are, if I don't start moving forward on permitting, those
So there's 4 out of the 9.
4 out of 9. Those are imperatives that I need. I'm not trying to be difficult, you guys. I'm trying to,
I guess, so given the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 7, obviously 4 is an ongoing, 1, 2, 3, and 7, if we were to do what you said and approve them all contingent upon those being done, how soon do you think 1, 2, 3, and 7?
can I look at your list
Yeah.
to refresh my memory on what was 3 and 7 are?
They're not numbered.
But in the order they're in?
Yeah, in the order they're in.
Well, in the next month, are you going to be moving on the other lots, or those are just kind of the next ones up after.
There's purchase and sale agreements and proposed on these 4 that I was.
Okay, so on these 4, but on the other 5, they're just kind of the next ones that
We
we're
have
trying to
like
work.
reservations on some of them, people are looking at them, but they're not standard concrete purchase and sale signed agreements, so
So delaying it a month isn't a big,
delaying those ones a month is not a huge deal for me.
and I wouldn't give them too much rope, I guess would be my thought on it. And we're back in a month, you know.
What are you saying? You'd agree with me, or?
I'd say we release the 4 that he says are the priority ones.
Without being contingent on 1, 2, 3, and 7, just releasing these
Oh, you're being
4.
easier than I am.
1, 2,
Well, no, I'd say it's contingent on, no, I mean,
Okay,
we can
that's
release those 4 without contingent, but you better not be back and asking for any more without everything done.
Wait,
I'd say by next Wednesday.
I wouldn't even go that far. Well, I mean, a lot of this work.
I'm fine making contingent, but, you know, I'm saying, I'm not sure we want to release
I'd
too
like to do
many.
the full boat, but if you're willing to work with me, I can probably say and get this stuff done by Wednesday.
As far as 1, 2, 3, and 7, though, we've already tied that to the bond release.
that's what I was just gonna say.
So I don't know that we necessarily need to tie it to the lot release. I would
I'd
say
rather
more.
belts and suspenders and just keep everything nice and consistent. The 2 votes that I'm looking for are
Okay.
contingent to the stuff that's important to us and the
Sure.
stuff that's important.
There are other items that need to be done though, so I would like to look to the other items and say, okay, we'll entertain these other lot releases when,
Yeah, but how realistic is it to get work done that we've communicated to him is to be expected to be done during the summer or over the course of a few weeks?
but some of these items, for example, like the handicap ramps, we've been requesting this for 2 years now, so it's.
But
getting to
Erica,
a point-
I'm not interested in holding up the project. If
I don't think we are, I don't think we are.
Respectfully disagree.
Yeah.
I think lot releases are an important thing that need to get going. I think where we can use leverage to our benefit simply to get stuff done, it makes sense. But I've got to segregate it into that which is delinquent and should have been done, safety issues.
Well,
that
handicap
need
ramps
to be
are
done.
a safety issue, I mean, it's not easy walking
One of
down a
them's on a road
sidewalk.
that's been occupied, residentially occupied for
Yeah, a long time.
over a year, but they don't have ramps there.
Well, interesting to hear thoughts from the board.
Those aren't something I can get done by like next Wednesday.
I understand
These
that.
items we were
I
discussing. can
understand
get
that,
done.
but that's also been discussed and said it's gonna get done, and gonna get done.
Yeah,
It took over a year to get the plan done, and that was a year.
I actually have strong feelings along the ADA stuff, so I would be more inclined to release the 4 lots that are imperative, and hold back the other ones for some of these other items.
So, just so I get it clear, the 4 that are imperative subject to or free and clear?
I'm free and clear mainly because we have already the subjects to the bond reduction, so.
And then release of the other lots subject to additionally ADA sidewalk installation.
Oh, what?
Well,
Why not all the
or
rest of it?
suitable progress on
Yeah.
the other items on the list.
It's suitable in the opinion of the board when he comes back and reviews?
Yeah. I mean, there's timeframes on all of this.
Yep.
So, you know, certainly,
Yeah.
finish curbing along Mill Pond and Slater Circle, it still says the next couple of weeks. Well, it was from a week ago, so I would say, in the next week or 2, that should be done, which is long before our next
When
meeting.
the
So when he
curbing
comes
for the
back
fire
for...
cistern goes in, they'll have the equipment and the company out there to do that.
Mhm.
We're generating the gravel to build up the base for the asphalt today and tomorrow, and it has to be tested.
Yep.
It has to approve the testing results.
But yeah,
And
I'm
then
just,
we can pave it and do the curbing.
I'm just saying that there's other things on here that have a time
I
frame.
like your thought. Ministerially, I think the way to do that is release those imperative lots now.
Yep.
Period. That's
Yeah,
it.
just leave it, yeah.
Come back to us, show us the progress, and we know that we're going to see
We'll
you
just
at the
go
next
through
meeting.
and see
And we'll
which-
talk about the progress list, and we'll talk about the rest of the lots,
Thank you.
knowing that we have an interest to.
And with the new set of imperative lots will be, and we'll
Okay.
go from there.
What do you
So that's
think?
the way it is.
Look for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve release of lots 33, 35, 36, and 43.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So, do we do it all?
That's it.
Yeah. We
Can I
can
bring the check to you tomorrow then? Does that anyone handle the check?
For,
Fed and they have to
Can I
fill
just-
it out.
can I just give you the amount tonight? You can fill it out? I'd
Absolutely.
rather give it
We
to
did
you.
that all subject to you figuring out the amount, so.
It's signed, it's in my
Don't
package,
rush.
so I know where I'm at. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good to
Good to see you.
see you.
Actually, can I get that paper back though?
Yeah.
After you fill it out?
No, that's
Yeah.
good.
So, we've got a follow-up conversation. I was not at the last, thank you very much. I was not at last month's meeting, but I watched the tape, spent a lot of time with it, spent a lot of time reading council's input, spent a lot of time reading for myself our existing code. We've got on here an agenda item to have a discussion on fast food bylaw. I think it can be taken in two parts, and I doubt we can handle both parts. One part is, what does the fast food bylaw say today? And I think it's important to have more of a conversation on that point. And the longer-term prospect is, does it say what we as a town want it to say, and could changes be made to it? But I think in front of us, it would behoove us to come to an understanding as to what it says now. Erica, do you want to summarize either by reading his most recent email from today, which we haven't even really digested yet, or summarizing what council is saying after digesting this?
Find my copy real quick.
I have one if you need one that I can share with you.
Here, I would prefer just to read
Okay.
his response. So my first statement to him in this email, Town Council Brian Falk, I say, I just essentially reiterate what we had discussed at the last meeting. Fast food is allowed as an accessory use to a primary use as long as the accessory use is 50% or less of the lot area. And then he goes on to say, yes, I believe this is a reasonable construction of the zoning bylaw, given the definitions of fast food, an accessory building or use provided in section 250-28 of the zoning bylaw. Per these definitions, the sale of prepared or rapidly prepared food must not occupy more than 50% of the lot and must be wholly incidental and ancillary to a conventional restaurant or other allowed principal use. Then I go on to say, the building inspector...
But let me cut you off right there.
Sure.
So there's two criteria, and that was one of my biggest comments to myself as I'm reviewing the tape from our last meeting. It's not simply a matter of 50% of lot coverage. And we talked in the meeting last time about should it be lot coverage, was the intent really something more like proportion of the building size? I think it's pretty darn clear whether the intent is accurate or not.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I'm waiting for you to finish.
Okay.
Give her a check.
Um,
You'll see you tomorrow.
The bylaw says 50% of lot coverage. I think right away, that one isolated condition, for better or for worse, it's how it's written now, is going to be a yes pretty much across the board every time, right? Because lot coverage of a building is 8%, normal course 10%, the overlay course, you're certainly always going to
I mean,
get
could that really be the intent of it, though?
No, it can't be the intent, but it's the way it's drafted, so that's what we have to live with today until it's changed.
I thought, excuse me to interrupt.
Well, I don't think, let me just finish very quickly, and then I'll let you talk, because I don't think that's not the crux of it. And if a zoning enforcement officer, and then if there's an issue, it goes to the ZBA, looks at that and says yes to every single application, we're really resting our hat on the second point. Wholly incidental and ancillary to a conventional restaurant or other allowed principal use. You use the term loophole, and I'm assuming your characterization of loophole is other allowed principal use, where it opens up the door, where maybe the intent here was, as Eric mentioned, Slater's, to pick an example, where it's truly a restaurant, but incidental to their use is takeout pizza. When you open up the door to other allowed principal use, the reality is, if you have an allowed principal use, and you can put your hand on your heart and say, yes, this fast food is wholly incidental and ancillary there too, then the answer to that second question is also going to be yes. And it sounds like he agrees.
When town council was here, though, I thought he agreed that we could interpret it to be either lot or building.
I disagree with
You
it.
do, okay.
I mean, it's so clear, it's 50% of lot coverage. I would like to agree with him because it would make a lot more sense to me. Because you look at a 3,000 square foot structure and say 850 feet are devoted to a Dunkies, the rest is a convenience store, a gas station,
Although-
whatever your permitted use is. And it passes two tests, a 50% and an ancillary. It's not written all well.
Yeah.
We can hang our hat on saying, is it wholly incidental? It's a little qualitative, it's not terribly quantitative, where sometimes we want things to be. The reality is, the zoning enforcement officer will make an adjudication, and if there's as Erica said, it's done pretty transparently. If we hear about it and there's disagreement, it goes to the ZBA. And now instead of just a town employee looking at it,
I mean, that,
it's elected officials.
the lot
looking at it,
coverage
too.
is so confusing, but
Doesn't make sense, right.
It doesn't make sense, but it's almost like a don't care.
That's where I'm coming at.
It's almost like a don't care, because whether it's 1% or 100 or 99% of it, it's, if it's not an
Has to be
accessory
incidental
use,
and
yeah.
ancillary.
Then it doesn't pass that test. I mean, I started really thinking about what's an example of something that's got a building that's 8% lot covered, but we really care about a 50% coverage of the fast food use. Kimball's, maybe, in Lancaster? I mean, we're talking about a massive amount of outdoor space.
But they're not 50% of their lot.
Well, let's say they were. Let's say it wasn't a huge cornfield.
Nothing will ever be 50%
You're
of
not
the
allowed
lot
to
here.
build that.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
isn't it just?
No, but you're not hearing me. Well, I'm not talking about build. If the use is an outdoor use, Frank Patterson has an outdoor use, Kimball's in a different town has an outdoor use. I'm not saying this is the
Like
answer, but
an outdoor
maybe
use that
that
takes
was part of
50%.
the intent.
But we don't quantify the amount of use on a lot. We quantify the size of the building and the size of the permeable surface.
But here we quantify the amount of the lot use. Maybe this is the only place we do it. Maybe it doesn't seem consistent with the rest of the bylaw.
I think it's just worded poorly.
I think it's probably worded poorly, and I'm kind of reaching for straws to make it make some sense.
But really, it really doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's, you kind of know if it's accessory or not, sort of.
No, I think you definitely do. I think you can make a judgment call. And I think there's a process for that judgment call not to rest in the hands of just one person. You know, it starts with one person, and then it can be adjudicated through an appeal process. I think that's very important. It would scare me a little bit if that wasn't, not because I don't trust one individual. I don't trust the concept of one individual. There's no counterbalance there. So I think the way it's written now, and we should get to the other points, I shouldn't run my mouth the whole time. I think based on his simple interpretation, I think he's right. I think if you check the two boxes, based on the way the code is written now, it's allowed. And we can look at different examples, but I think in the abstract.
But your second box is incidental, right? So,
Is it incidental to the primary? Yeah.
an incidental saying happening as a minor part
Yes.
or a result of something else. So it's not a result of something else, but is it happening as a minor part of something else?
In what example?
And how do you
So
quantify
this is
that?
Merriam-Webster's definition of the word incidental,
Yeah,
because
okay.
we do not define it in our bylaws.
Yeah, so we have.
How do you quantify that?
Yeah.
That's-
Well, there's no
That's-
quantification test in this.
No, and
You know, there's the
that's what you're saying,
50%,
it
but I don't want to blur that. They're two
No,
separate
yeah, because that's
things.
lot coverage. I agree with you.
Got it.
I think it's word, but when you read this, wholly incidental ancillary to the conventional restaurant or other principal use.
Yeah.
So you're saying other principal use, but that's saying, so as pizza pickup is incidental or ancillary to Slater's, I don't know, some other type of business, something that would be incidental to that. I wouldn't say that a Dunkin' Donuts is incidental to a convenience store.
Right,
I would.
selling candy
Well, I
bars is
definitely would. I don't
incidental
know
to
why
a candy store, selling candy bars is incidental to the convenience store, right? You go in for a whole lot of different things, or you might buy a candy bar. But having the Dunkin' Donuts as the sole reason that you're going there,
I don't think you can make that, I don't think you can give that presumption of why people are going in there. I think selling candy bars at a gas station is an incidental use.
Yeah.
I think selling candy bars at a convenience store is a primary use. That's a fun,
Okay.
that's, you know, that's part of their business.
But is it Dunkin' Donuts an ancillary use of, the convenience store?
I mean, people go in there to buy coffee, and they already go to buy coffee and donuts.
I think if you put your hand
Yeah.
across your heart, it is today. I think your coffee counter is incidental to your primary business. It's a piece of it. I think Subway's the same way. I think when was it Video Signals, or whatever your video shop was, I think that was the same thing. I think your ATM is the same.
I think I'm like biased by the fact that I know what they meant. But really,
you have to interpret.
But if you just interpret it, yeah, it probably does mean that.
I mean, the part that throws this for a little bit of a loop for me is wholly incidental and ancillary to a conventional restaurant, which would cover Slater's.
Right.
Or other allowed principal use, which
Right.
kind of seems to catch all of anything that's permitted is,
But
you
it's
know.
there. I know, I don't love it.
Right, but so, you know,
Yeah,
an example
right.
of, you know, this is to allow, you know, someplace like Slater's,
Yeah.
well, they're already covered by the first part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So. is
Laundromat,
that-
a
Yeah,
Dunkin'
so-
Donuts and a
A
laundromat.
Dunkin' Donuts and laundry, yeah, if somebody wanted to, or Ed Murphy Insurance, yeah.
But though, when they become silly, I think the zoning enforcement officer and then the adjudication thereof can look at that and say, no, Murphy Insurance and Dunkin' Donuts, I mean, it's not ancillary.
I think where the enforcement officer
Or
comes
is it, but it's incidental, maybe incidental.
I think where the enforcement
Well, it's
officer.
not it's not incidental or ancillary, it's incidental and ancillary.
Yeah.
It's supportive.
I think what still has to be determined by the building inspector, Erica, is that the primary use is you know, if the primary use no longer is the primary use, then it becomes the Dunkin' Donuts.
Right.
Well, how.
For instance, if say in 470 Main Street, one of their units, they say, oh, it's a convenience store, but they sell like 3 candy bars, but then the rest of it's a Dunkin' Donuts.
Then that judgment
Yeah.
is made, and it's not
It's not an
incidental
accessory
and
use.
ancillary.
So that's what I'm saying, that's where it comes into play. Like,
It'll
clearly
come
that's
into
not
play.
accessory.
Yep.
I mean, but how do you determine, I mean, is it by square footage, is it by gross revenue, net revenue?
I mean, it's
I mean, what's the, you know, what's your measurement there?
At some point, you have to determine if it's accessory or primary. I mean,
It sounds like
yeah.
it's a judgment call.
it's a judgment call.
Yeah.
I think it is a judgment.
Martha has something to say.
Mark?
Before you were all born, a gas station had gasoline, it sold oil, it may have had an air pump, they may have had a service part of it. The existing 460 gas station used to sell, it had cigarette machine, it sold candy bars, it sold different grades of oil, and it had 3 bays that were used for service. There was no such thing as a convenience store at a gas station. Now, when Global Partners comes up and you're talking about the main use, I don't consider it the main use, pumping gas and a convenience store. I don't think that it should be a given that you have a gas station, it has a convenience store. To say nothing about then the convenience store has a section for Dunkin' Donuts, and in the article in the paper, which did have some inaccuracies, they're talking about another restaurant use in that complex.
In a separate lot. The other
Well,
was.
They might
were
want to
looking at the
clarify
whole
that, she
thing.
might be right.
I think they were saying maybe 2 things in that.
I mean, the whole lot is 26
I
acres.
think-
They're just talking about this east end. But the point
Yeah.
is, they did mention yet another place to buy food.
Their drawing showed 3 lots.
So I
And
don't,
But I think that they were talking about potentially having 2 things in that building.
the thing is, and they also had it named Alltown, which is the mobile copyright for their convenience store. It's not gonna be an Alltown at the Shell, it's gonna be what they call it. Alltown is for mobile, Exxon Mobil gas.
I think that some of theirs are called Old Town. The one in Westford is.
Well, why can't it be called something golden? Why does it have to be global? I mean, global is getting out of style these days.
Well, they don't.
Anyway, I look at the regular thing, I look at this as a gas station. We need a gas station for people, you know, that's open and available to buy.
You know, you have a good point that gas stations were just gas stations for a long time ago. And then convenience stores moved in. And now that's pretty normal. And now
And now you have
fast
the
food
fast
is moving
food.
in, and that's pretty normal.
And the lottery tickets and the Keno and the whole thing, everything that goes with it. I mean, the thing that shocks me about this is we've had a wonderful convenience store there for decades. And now we're going to let them build a nice convenience store next to the one we have?
Unfortunately, it's
We can't pick favorites.
It's a primary
You just
use.
have to-
Well,
Yeah.
but I'm saying the scale can be changed. There are
Oh, we're not
sizes
even
of
there.
these
We're
that
not, we're not,
are huge
we're not
and
even
small.
there.
We didn't even have
Yeah, there's no application.
An application in front of us.
Yeah,
on
we've
that,
got
so.
nothing, and I don't want to, yeah.
I think we can also look at it in a more general term, like, is it retail use, is it restaurant? We can look at it that way too.
I think to make any judgment calls, we have to have an application.
Oh,
Yeah.
Absolutely
of course.
positive. I think that's the answer.
And I mean, you know, based on just our discussion, I'm sure there would be a scaling down of what they wanted.
What I'm
or
trying to do
discussion of it.
here is,
Yeah.
you guys raised a concern, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to dive into what's allowed, what's not allowed. And if I use an application, I want to use the application of your store, whether it's your existing one or your new one. Before I ramble too much, do you want to pick up on two?
Sure. I go on to say the building inspector in coordination with myself and the board will make the determination whether or not the fast food is accessory. And I believe this is what we talked about at the last meeting, by square footage of the floor area.
That's what we
talked, decided would be sort of the easiest
We said-
way to make that determination.
Yeah, we said because the lot coverage didn't make sense,
Right.
that it would be reasonable to interpret that you could use the square footage of the floor area as a
Determining factor.
Can I twist that a little bit? I'd say, because I think it is, I think you need to interpret what's written, 50% of lot. I yield to the other point, where we talk about wholly incidental and ancillary. And if we want to measure wholly incidental and ancillary based
Well, I think
on
that's,
qualitative, quantitative, or both, then yeah.
and I think that's probably what he was, the council was referring
The
to.
reality is, if you read the definition of fast food, they talk about sales. One cannot measure sales without looking at financials. And I realize when you get an application, you don't have any historic sales.
Yep.
You might have a pro forma, but I think you're probably stepping back a step and saying more qualitative. Does it look like a duck and quack like a duck, and stuff like that?
Well, and if you read all the other sentences in fast food that we haven't spent as much time on because they're not as meaty maybe, it's very clear that the authors of this were trying to curtail all fast food. Right?
Yeah.
We're stuck on this one sentence, but if you read the rest of them, it's very clear.
Right,
So
I
I think
agree.
we shouldn't forget the 75% of the rest of the definition, and when,
You mean when it goes on to talk about health concerns and stuff
well,
like that? Why
right,
would we go like that?
But to that point, it starts off, an establishment whose principal business is the sale of prepared or readily prepared food.
Yes.
Well, if this is, if it's Dunkin' Donut, if it's country covered, and that's just a part of what their business is, or at All Town, and that's part of what their business is, or at Slater's decides to put in a Dunkin's or whatever, or Tim Hortons to go up the scale a little bit. That is not the primary business of that. I mean, I think this, to me, sounds more like, this would be McDonald's wanting to put a building in as the, that's their primary business for that. It's now, so the kind of the ancillary, incidental and ancillary part of it kind of almost avoids the
I don't
rest
think
of the
so.
fast food piece.
I don't think so, because it's saying that the fast food function has a primary business of food service. But then it talks about the fast foods function being ancillary to another primary use. So what it's describing is a fast food establishment, picking on Dunkin' Donuts a lot, but
Yeah.
like Dunkin' Donuts, whose primary function is food. That fast food, primary function of food being ancillary to the other permitted use.
Right.
Which in the spirit of this is like a Slater's type of an example, a sit-down restaurant. But which, because of that caveat there, other permitted use, could certainly be other retail use.
Yep.
Gas station to pick another example, et cetera.
I really think you should separate the gas from the convenience store. The convenience store is already an ancillary use. It's part of our society now. It
Yeah, but-
used to just be gas and
Again, we
gas
don't
products.
know until we've got an
Well,
application.
yeah, but I'm just saying, I get nervous when you say the use is convenience store and pumping gas.
but it's
It's a gas
permitted.
station.
A convenience
Yeah,
store
that's
is
the point.
permitted.
Convenience
A
stores.
convenience store is permitted,
I'd love to agree with you.
and a
Right,
gas
but it
station's
shouldn't be
permitted.
bigger than the gas station.
But it's permitted, it can be.
It can be whatever it
You
wants.
can have
I
a
mean, the
convenience
one
They
down
come
at
in-
190 and 117 is a monstrosity. They have
We
two
agree.
gas
You
We
stations.
agree,
have
we
that.
agree.
In our town, you can have that convenience store there, that's allowed, and that's why the convenience store is not the accessory use.
Right.
Because it's
Yeah,
allowed
that's the
already.
point.
But the thing is, if it's next to another one, we really should consider this.
And we will, but this is just a narrow question of let's interpret this piece of the bylaw. When it gets time, the application for us, it's time to do a special permit, we look at stuff like design review board, as you well know, and we look and say, is a super Walmart harmonious with the neighborhood in the Pan District? The answer is probably no.
Depends on how it looks and how much parking
No,
there
be
is.
interesting.
But that's part of this, that's part of the negotiation, that's part of the special permit. These things are not allowed as of right uses. So we will rely on the design review board. And
Oh, I'm ready
good
for
guy.
it. I think it's also important to remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this bylaw passed almost unanimously.
It was unanimous.
Was it unanimous?
Yes.
I thought
No,
there might
there
have been
wasn't.
one.
Yeah, there's one.
The one in 2014?
Of course, there's one.
Because I have the reports here, and it said it was unanimous, the mixed use one.
So and
No,
I
this
know,
isn't mixed
I know
use,
it's,
this is
no,
fast food.
fast food. It was years, it was
Oh.
like 6
Oh,
or
that one from-
7 years ago.
Oh, this one
something like
didn't supersede that one?
that. No, fast food came first, but it was almost unanimous. And so we need to, now I know that doesn't quantify anything, but we need to remember that the town was behind this.
I don't even care if it's 5149. I appreciate your comment, I said that wrong, but if it's in our code, if it's written there, then we gotta look at the way it's written, we gotta interpret it, we gotta enforce it. If we don't like it, then I do care a lot about whether it was unanimous, because then we make a decision, do we bring it back and keep on massaging this thing? Is it not right?
But we can remember that the intent was there with the town.
You know, I mean, we keep turning circles, but, I mean, I actually come from the opposite, where I think that probably as an accessory use, it should be allowed, but I know that what the intent was, and I know that that's not, you know, as an overall,
That's
how
the
it's
debate.
currently
That's the
worded.
move forward.
I think the point here is, we have to work with what's
Yes.
written and interpret what's written, whether we like it,
Yeah.
whether we want to scrap it, whether we want
Yeah.
to revise it,
Right.
whatever we want to
Right.
do with it.
Well, because
Is a discussion for a
For the
later
town.
date.
For us
And
and
for the town.
So if the Hoods wanted to put a Dunkin' Donuts and say, I'm just using you because you're there, and, you know, we said, no, you know, it's not allowed, but you went to court, our town council is telling us it's not gonna hold up.
So let's continue, quick question.
Was the fast food standalone or part of the village overlay?
Standalone.
Standalone.
Oh,
It came
great.
first.
Yeah.
Fast
Okay,
food
good.
Yeah,
definition
just
came
before.
first.
Yeah, it was several years before the village overlay
Excellent.
came up.
And-
So we asked more questions of council.
Well, can I say one thing about that? So, sorry.
We gotta get through this.
Yeah, I know, but the fast food came first, but I think that was kind of, I know Mark has said this before, that was like an all or nothing thing. I think with the special permit and the design review
Yeah,
board,
it's a different
with the
society.
design review board, you could take a Dunkin' Donuts and, like you gave an example of, you can put a Dunkin' Donuts in the Clinton Savings Bank and just change the signage, and would it really make a difference, you know?
Yeah, but remember, we can make it pretty, we can make any of these things pretty,
Yeah.
but
There's more
but
to
if the town
Do we want it?
voted unanimously not to have fast food.
But at that point, they voted on it because they were scared of the golden arches coming.
Dunkin' Donuts.
We didn't have the design review board at that point, so we had
Right.
very little
You're right about that.
control about. and
We had no
People
control.
were worried, you know,
You're right.
drive down
Then
Route
it
20
turned
and
into
look at the
Route 9,
buildings,
that's
or,
right.
you know.
And then design review
And then-
came right after.
And then design review came, and now
We do have
Oh,
control.
we wouldn't have that, and.
Right.
But in order to make that argument's gotta be made to the town's
Yeah.
gonna buy the argument. Today,
Yes.
we've got what we've got.
Right.
Please.
Let's see here, I'm gonna just sort of summarize
Sure.
the next two paragraphs. I go on to say, research in the country covered, the retail uses within the building are grandfathered. The convenience store opened in the 80s prior to town meeting 2004, when retail uses were amended from an allowed use by right to special permit. My question to him, to town council, is would Dunkin' Donuts require a special permit as an accessory use to the convenience store, given that Subway already exists? And then I just go on to say, I would think for the traffic and parking alone, they would need a special permit. Then he says, based on your research, country cupboards allowed principal use, and then he puts in parentheses, for purposes of the fast food bylaw provision, is a
Yeah, I agree
pre-existing,
with that.
non-conforming convenience store. Because the use predated the special permit requirement, coffee sales and food sales appear to be permitted within the pre-existing non-conforming convenience store use and/or permitted as an accessory use based upon the definitions referenced above. A change in Country Cupboard's use resulting from adding a Dunkin' Donuts operation within the convenience store may qualify as an extension or alteration of the pre-existing non-conforming use, which would require a special permit from the ZBA. And then he just goes on to say, I don't have enough information about the actual proposed use to evaluate whether this would actually trigger a special permit from ZBA.
I want to digest that.
So it wouldn't be a special permit through us? then?
No, it would not, because it's a pre-existing non-conforming use.
So they would
They're
need a
grandfathered, so they would
variance.
have to go through ZBA. It's not a variance, it's a special permit,
Why? What triggers that?
because it's a pre-existing non-conforming. So
They
that
they were
can be
before
restored.
1972.
No, but what triggers the need for them to do anything?
I know. Oh, right, he said May.
No, May,
He's-
if
he's-
it's an
maybe you have to go back and
extension.
look at it. I mean, I almost look at it as,
I disagree.
they already have a coffee and
Yeah.
donut vendor, and they're just changing.
Changing it.
They're just, see, what we're talking about here in this conversation is not fast food, it's franchise. It's branding. That's what would change here, as far as I'm
Well, and
concerned.
that-
You put up a different sign, but you're doing the same thing. If it can be confirmed that you're not expanding the area in which you'd sell donut and coffee, you're not changing the model of who is working for the store. Are there Dunkin' Donuts employees that are, this is my interpretation, that are coming in to run that counter? If you're doing it the same way, but you've got different branding, I don't see the difference. I don't see it triggering
I
any.
think that's where he said, if it may qualify as an extension or alteration, so that doesn't sound like that's an extension or alteration, exactly what you just said.
Yeah, but
That's-
Dunkin' Donuts would take up a lot more space than a
Well,
coffee.
but
Well,
that- that's
it would take
different.
up no more space.
But no,
We don't know
but
that.
to your
That's
point,
what he says at the very end.
I think
It
that's-
depends on what they propose. So
Yeah,
we
so
really
if
don't
it
know.
was
Then
something
he's got the right answer.
Yeah.
within the same square footage of what you had, this is what I'm understanding, is if it's something within the same square footage of what you already have now, you're not expanding it, extending
Yeah,
it, or
that's right.
altering it, just changing
Yeah.
vendors, that would absolutely be allowed, you wouldn't have to go to anyone. However, if you start making it larger, and you start adding things, or, doing something like that, then it would be a special permit through ZBA only.
ZBA only,
Yeah.
right.
That's how I would
Well,
read with you.
it's whether
Well,
it's
it-
takeout or sit down.
That would be
No,
a change.
that's a change,
That would
that's an
be a change.
expansion.
Right now, they have takeout coffee.
Yeah, so if it was, if it kept with the same intent of takeout, along the same,
You wouldn't change that.
I
It
wouldn't change
would
that.
still be takeout.
But it would, I think Dunkin' Donuts probably would use
Employees.
approximately the same amount of space
Oh, okay.
that Subway uses, maybe 500 square feet, 400 square feet.
is
at
that
most.
larger than what you have?
Well, if,
Yeah.
it depends,
Maybe not.
because, yeah, it is, but the donut case is over here, and the, the long coffee counter, but, I mean, basically, it is more than what,
Okay.
I mean, the stepping of people, we sell muffins and things not in the donut case, so that whole area in the front, right to the store, is kind of like, like the takeout type of thing that you would get for breakfast and things like that.
Stop and Shops have Dunkin' Donuts counters that are about the size of your area.
Yeah, you're
Stop
right.
and Shops,
Yeah.
you just go in, you don't have tables, but.
Right, we wouldn't have
Healthy
tables,
takeout.
we wouldn't have tables, but, they,
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength, I think. I think if...
but
we
it
would look
wasn't
at the
required for Subway. Special permit was not required for Subway.
proposal. I'm saying a special permit would not be, in my mind, would not
But
be required for this.
ZBA wasn't required.
Well, it's not necessarily required.
Council is just hedging his bets and saying
Yeah.
it may be required depending on.
If it was a substantial difference.
Around exactly what we're talking about.
Let's
Let's
see
see
the
the proposal.
proposal and see what.
You took up half your store.
So I think.
Yeah, that's a change, I think, yeah.
I think what I'm hearing here is to avoid going to ZBA for a special permit, she needs to put in a Dunkin' Donuts that is of similar size to the accrued square footages around her store of the sales of coffee,
The coffee and
muffins,
donuts.
I think you gotta go, just in the abstract, step back a step and say, is it Is it comparable in all respects? Are we looking at
Doesn't have to be
tit for tat?
exact, right?
No, it doesn't have to be exact, but if all you're changing is the branding, if you're offering the same type of a product, you're using the same type of space, you've got the same seating versus non-seating component, I think it runs the gambit and considers a lot of features of the design. But if we're talking about the same thing, I don't think it triggers anything. That's my read. I would imagine, based on how he's wording it, that's his read too. But he's not going to commit to it one way or other without seeing the permit.
Right.
I would suggest that we keep him in the loop if you guys move forward with something. I wouldn't want to just make that determination on my own. But interpreting what he's saying and how I read the thing myself, yeah.
All right, so I know you don't want to talk about the future, but
That's fine. I want to separate the two.
it was separated,
Yeah.
but.
Well, we still have one more question.
Yeah, no, that's fine, but in my opinion, I feel like that's kind of how it should read, is
How should it
that,
read?
that accessory should be allowed by special permit, and that
That's a
way.
change
And
from now.
clearly
Yeah.
defined.
Today, it's not.
So-
Yeah.
Yeah, you could make it, that is one way. You could make it very simple and say
I'm
accessory fast food by special permit.
I'm uncomfortable, like,
That's the clean.
although personally, I think that it should happen. I'm uncomfortable with the discussion because I know that the town voted fairly unanimously for no fast food, but I would like to know,
It's how this was drafted. mean,
I would like to know,
on
you know,
this
so
draft.
I would like to put forward a bylaw that said, fast food is allowed as accessory by special permit, and then see what the town says, you know?
Well, and you're gonna find that out, because that would have to be
Yeah.
voted on a special town
Exactly,
meeting,
yeah.
and we'll all
Yeah.
find out how.
Because that's
which
exactly
way
what
it
we're
goes.
saying, yeah.
You got it.
But from now until then, you know,
The Wild West.
It's not the
Yeah.
wild.
no,
Adjudication and-
No,
As long as it's in-
from now until then, we don't really have a say.
Hilarious, yeah.
It's an arms race. That's,
Yeah.
that comment was given to me by someone
Yeah.
you all know.
It's an interpretation of the
Okay.
existing code.
Yeah. Last question.
So,
All right.
yeah, you want to finish the last, sure.
Let's see here, last question. If an existing restaurant or other primary use wanted to add a Dunkin' Donuts and they have a special permit for that primary use, would a modification or new special permit be required? And then he goes on to say, it depends on whether I found this very interesting. It depends on whether the terms of the existing special permit restrict this type of accessory use. An accessory use is allowed as of right for any lawful principal use unless the zoning bylaw or an existing
Yeah,
special
sure.
permit provides otherwise. Again, the sale of prepared or rapidly prepared food must not occupy more than 50% of the lot and must be wholly incidental and ancillary to a professional restaurant or other allowed principal use.
So unless it
So-
specifically says no fast food or something.
It's allowed by right,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
interesting.
It's the same answer as the
Yeah.
rest of the stuff up
Yes.
top, really.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it sounds like it's a go until we either we put it towards, to the town, approve it by special permit, or the town changes it to ban it, or whatever, I don't know,
Clear as mud?
Yes. I got it.
Well, it took a couple months.
Well, I mean,
So you were on the planning board when that was done, right?
I was on the planning board after it was written and before it was voted.
Yeah.
I did not write it, I came in
A
after.
lot of
they-
blame put on Mr. Story last month, I saw.
I can't-
Jeez.
I would love for him to come
But did he express thoughts
talk
at
about the,
that
well, I don't
last month's
wanna-
meeting?
no, he wasn't here.
Okay. Oh, I thought he was in the
No,
other.
he wasn't, no, he wasn't here.
No.
Oh, okay. I'm watching my tape, that's what I gathered, but, okay.
Yeah, but so I think it would be, good to put it before the town, just to make it 100% clear.
I think we should continue to talk about what we want to see, and then propose something in front of the town and see what the town wants to see.
yeah, I mean, I think
I think
there's
it's a good conversation to keep on.
there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts, I mean, that were not here when this was put in place.
Yeah.
There's another design review board,
Yeah.
and then there's a village overlay that we need to think about if we want to, and if anything is ever built under that, what mix of businesses and what are the
Yeah.
residents going to want as businesses
Right.
in that area? I mean, on mixed-use areas that I've seen, there is some amount of, that would fall under that fast food.
Yeah.
A pizza
That might be
place that
nice.
want to be able to,
Yeah, so,
or
yeah,
something
like
like
some
that.
people.
So you need to,
Right.
you need to look very carefully.
Some people
how-
say no Dunkin' Donuts, but then they say, oh, I'd love to have like a bakery, a coffee and stuff, like, okay, that's a Dunkin' Donuts.
It's franchise. It's a
just
conversation about the word franchise.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, which town council also made very clear, you know, you can't, you know, we can't ban that.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
that's what they tried to do with the
By
wording.
general bylaw.
By-
Or by zoning.
Well, with the fast food wording, I mean, they tried to do it.
They tried to.
They tried to, but yeah, but I mean, he made, it's one of the towns down on the Cape, I think, that had banned the
Well,
formulaic restaurants, and they banned that,
Oh,
and the courts struck that ban down.
I think the
So-
big thing is the drive-throughs. Without the drive-through, the Dunkin'
One
Donuts
of the
can
big
only.
ones.
Huh?
Yeah.
Without the drive-through, like I said this last meeting, I personally don't see that, you know, all of a sudden, it's gonna like double or triple, like pulling off the road. Maybe I'm wrong, but,
I think you're wrong.
huh?
I mean, you know, McDonald's and, I mean, there's, you know, Acton and some of the other towns don't have drive-throughs, but their fast food places seem to be
Doing okay.
doing quite nicely.
Dunkin'
Yeah.
Donuts can generate a fair amount of traffic.
Even without drive-through.
Oh, yeah, people are hooked.
Yeah,
And in fact,
I
if
take the
somebody's drive-through way,
6:25 JetBlue flight.
I've also
Boston to
heard the concern.
Philly all the time now, once a week, and the line outside of
Oh,
Dunkin'
yeah,
Donuts
oh, yeah.
Mhm.
is 65 people long.
I've also heard the concern that, well, you know, Bolton Bean is coming in and Bolton Orchard sells coffee, so are you gonna be hurting their business? But I don't know that that's our place to be saving other people's business, is it? I'm not sure.
Well, but it does talk about, or not that, but
Yeah.
talk about in the interest
Right.
of Bolton. You know, but that's.
What says in the interest of
permit.
Bolton, the fast food?
Um,
Special permit
The
does.
latter
Special-
definition of the word for fast food.
So if we had
Yeah.
special permit, that would come into play.
Right.
Is it detrimental to?
Right, because then
Yeah.
you guys can attack
We
that
could
as a
say,
special permit.
we could say, well, this, you know,
Right.
this Dunkin' Donuts will
Or
hurt.
a gun, or a truck stop, you know.
I mean, you know, I mean, whether we're on a truck stop or not, that's a pretty
Yeah.
big thing. Whether we want to say, well, you know, I like the coffee at Bolton Orchards, you know, and maybe I decide Bolton Bean is too expensive for me, so I don't, you know, but how do you start juggling?
Yeah, right.
You know, what businesses we want to make successful or not, or whatever. So I think, yeah, I think at that point, it's kind of, if we're allowing,
Right.
you know,
Well, it
the.
depends on if they're side by side. I mean, you know, Bolton Orchard's
Is that,
is way down
is
the
that for
other
us to
side.
decide? I mean, yeah, I mean.
Even if it is
Sure,
side by
but
side.
Even if they're side by side, if they're not, you know, I mean, there are people who swear by Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and there's other people that swear at it. So, you know, there are people who will go out of their way to go to Dunkin's, and there are people who will avoid it. So it's not for us to say, because there's, you know, Tim Hortons and Dunkin' Donuts next to each other, you know, that we shouldn't allow those. Because there's people that, you know, are rabid fans of each of them, you know.
One more thing that disturbed me in that article, and I think you said they presented 3 lots. The current gas station, which they now own, or they lease from the Canes, that is, or was, pre-existing non-conforming. Now, since they've added and made that 92,000 acre lot, a over 2 acre lot, it's really, they want to repurpose that building. That building should not be repurposed. It's nowhere near 150 feet from the road, it's 40 feet from the road.
Well, pre-existing non-conforming, if the use changes substantially, I would think that
Well,
would.
the lot has changed, it's technically not pre-existing non-conforming now because they expanded the lot this past spring.
That's right, we do.
But if they
is it-
change the use, it
It's operating.
reverts.
If they change the
illegally.
use, it would have to be a new special permit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't-
It'd have to be
Well,
rebuilding a
researched
2 acre
this.
lot.
It either has to be abandoned or discontinued for
That
more
was
than
it.
2 years, so,
But at
But
a
even
change
if
of
the
use,
use
it
change-
has to be reevaluated.
right.
So
But
Say
it
that
can't-
again, if the use changes, not the
Yes.
owner.
It can't
I have
operate,
it here, actually.
it can't operate pre-existing
operate
non-conforming if the
continuously.
lot is now not restrictive. It's 2 acres now. The building is just out of code because it's too close to the road.
Right, so they have to maintain the gas station, or they lose the ability to use that building, given that it will be a change of use.
Yeah,
Then
but
they
now
have
that
to
the
go through
lot's been
process.
enlarged, that's a moot point.
Yeah,
Well,
no, it's not.
It was an A and R, it was approval
But-
not required.
But they still, they can't change that use without going through the approval process again, because they are now have a different use. They can do another gas station there.
Yeah.
The
They can
fact
change
that the lot is no longer
but-
non-conforming
but
changes the whole thing.
No, the fact that they changed, they changed the lot to incorporate, I believe, to incorporate the well for the lot. Into
No,
that.
the spare well is in the vacant field in front of my house. They have another that's on the existing
No, I believe they-
92,000
I
feet.
think they needed to, in any event, I mean, I don't
So
have the
they had
history
to
in
dig
front of
another
me.
well?
They may have, yeah.
There's a couple wells,
But, yeah. But that doesn't change whether or not the building is conforming or not, regardless of the rest of the lot. Yeah. You could have 100 acres, but if the building is not conforming, it's still not conforming, so.
Right. Can I say one more thing? I think Mark was onto something. When you were talking about revisions to the fast food bylaw potentially, and you said the village overlay, and if someone builds within the village overlay, so there are carrots to build in the village overlay, right? The 10% lot coverage instead of 8%.
Yeah.
And maybe that's another way to think about future fast food
Like places where it would be
installations.
acceptable or something like that.
Right, because we still haven't gotten anybody to build in the village overlay, and these lots are starting to be built up.
Did you
and-
talk about fast food in the overlay?
I mean, we just use, whatever the uses are, allowed uses are.
Okay.
There's no special uses.
I thought it reiterated no fast food, but.
It does, but given the loophole, you can still do it there.
As an
Because as long as
accessory.
it's an accessory to it, yeah, so.
Because
So
the
you-
loop-
so you
because
can't-
the loopholes in the definitions.
I can't put my pizza place in, but I can put my convenience store with my 49% of the square footage as,
You got it.
yeah.
You got it. So that may be an interesting way to try to entice people to use the village overlay.
Yeah, sure.
And that also gives it a place to be instead of, in a more residential setting.
So you got till about May?
Is there going to be a special town meeting in the fall?
I think there was gonna be one if we had to do something with Minuteman, but it doesn't look like it's gonna.
Minuteman, I think, would only be a vote if it's,
Yeah,
There's no-
they
there's
said
no-
in the last bulletin and minutes that it was, they were gonna be putting it out to a vote instead of,
yeah, it's.
instead of having a special.
Because
There's no town meeting required, it's the,
Yeah,
the district calling a direct.
and it's
a direct
majority,
Yeah,
it gets approved or something like that.
Yeah, it's a nuclear option. It's a direct vote, instead of going by, well, it's section N of whatever, so it just became a nuclear, yeah.
So we're.
But basically, the way the agreement is written is, if all of the towns approved,
Yeah.
if all the town meetings approved,
Then they would,
then it would have gone through.
but one.
Belmont,
Reneged.
yeah,
So because of that,
exactly.
they have to go to the.
So now they need to go to but the towns that approved it were all unanimous or nearly unanimous at town meeting. So, they're.
They don't wanna go back to the town meeting process.
Well, because in order to get Belmont to agree, they're gonna, Belmont thinks the school's too big, but that's the smallest that MSBA will approve, so they can't make it any smaller, and Belmont has other issues with it.
I didn't think they had
After
the
the fact,
location.
after we had many meetings with a lot of negotiation, a lot of horse trading between the different towns, Belmont was on board with it until they got close to town meeting, and then some rabble rousers in town stirred things up, and it got disapproved at town meeting. But this is getting off topic, but so if they pull if the Minuteman School Board votes to them, we'll have a direct.
So it sounds like
a direct vote, and that's on one particular day, district-wide. Everybody votes that.
It sounds like it's gonna be May, so that's.
So global partners won't call for a special town meeting to deal with.
They
the
can't call for a
gas
special
station?
town
They
meeting.
can, I thought they money to
There's
do that.
some way, they could do like a citizen's petition type of a
Yeah.
thing.
Really?
Yes,
I think so, right?
it happened, a handful of years ago.
Well, when they were here, they were like, oh yeah, we'll be getting back to you in the summer and all this time. I mean, we haven't heard anything, so I don't know, right?
Yeah, nothing's been,
I mean, it's
What
July.
about the gasoline? I
Down
had heard
trees.
that was going to have to be a town vote to increase the...
Right, that's,
Yeah, they want-
That's where we were wondering if they were gonna come back to,
I mean, but it's already July, so it's,
They're working on it.
They started tearing down trees already.
Yeah.
well, they're tearing down trees. up there.
They're building these lovely little driveways up there.
I mean, again, like, so I put a letter in the paper, because that article, you keep mentioning the article, was kind of misleading. I mean, like,
There
it
was
made
an
it,
inaccuracies.
inaccuracies, and it made things sound like it was a done deal, where, you know, we haven't even received an application, so.
yeah, I think that's a key point that, I've had people ask me, when's it gonna be approved, or anything like that, I was like, nothing's been submitted.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
We just have to remember that it can be very nice if we stick to our guns about things. And
Of course.
you don't need a canopy with shell on it. There's one in Boylston, it's got little brown shingles.
Yeah.
We're
It
gonna
can
have tons
still
of
be-
conversations.
It can still be
Yeah.
small town.
We always talk
rather
about,
than-
we always talk, yeah. I mean, so everybody thinks about the one down 117 in Leominster.
Oh.
But we're thinking of River Bridge and Berlin,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and it can be
It's
nice.
a negotiation.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good luck. I'm sure we'll see more about this.
Bolton Solar.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
So it's you and Mike?
And Erica, and who else was there? Fred?
Well, I just meant,
Yeah, of the board meeting. Yeah.
I did 9 o'clock PM, like, we had like 10 minutes, but we finished up.
Nope, it was good.
Well, you got started later than that anyway, so.
We did.
Yeah.
So, well, you went up and walked around, or?
We went in through the entrance in the back of Bolton Orchards. We walked around the new site. We could see the old site. I hadn't been back there for a long period of time.
Is it
They
all grown
started
over, or is it-
construction a little bit, as it really shouldn't have started construction a little bit.
right.
But Hamway's in the loop, Hamway will stay in the loop, et cetera. It was the process from it.
Is it all grown over, or is it pretty much down to dirt or anything?
No, it's all cleared.
The
Cleared
new site is
level.
cleared, the new site is, only a small section is loom, right? The rest is kind of wood chip looking material?
Yeah, it's, exactly. But, and then the gravel access drive has been installed as well, so.
Okay. So what are we looking to modify? Something on the new
So I
site
got
or
a
the old
request
site?
from Sincarfa, this is the new site,
Okay.
Bolton Solar. In your packet is a detail for the chain link fence, the perimeter fence for the project. And it's essentially a minor modification, if you look at our special permit, what we consider a minor modification. They want to replace the rail at the bottom of the fence with a tension wire. Right now, we've reviewed it, he's fine with it, so basically the board just needs to make a motion that it's a minor modification and that they approve of the change.
And why is that?
Why do they want to do that?
Save
I
money.
believe it's easier for them to do the 4-inch gap at the bottom, they can lift the...
Oh,
It sounds enormously laborious to do it the way that they did it the last time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
so they're gonna have
Every
the,
section is picked up.
so the gap is gonna be all the way around instead
All the
of
way
our
around.
compromise last time was.
Yeah, exactly.
Make sure the critters know exactly where to cross. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the tension wire is easier for them to put in than the rails.
Yeah, it is,
Yeah.
it's cheaper,
And
it's
a lot
easier,
cheaper, yeah.
and it's fine. I mean, I
And
typically
it's-
see fences only with 2 rails.
Okay.
The top rail and middle rail proposed.
And you figure from an animal perspective, the tension wire gives them a little flexibility, so, you know, if they're 4.5 inches, then they can still squeeze through.
Okay.
It's fine.
But they obviously have barbed on the top, so, which is for
Yeah.
specific reasons, so
Okay.
I'm okay.
Yeah, I'll move that we approve the change for Bowler Solar 2, to replace the bottom rail with tension wire.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Can we also have a motion that this is a minor modification to the project?
I will move that we note that this is a minor modification to the plan.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right.
Did you, I brought up an email to Arthur about,
The taxes?
oh, no, well, I guess the taxes, but that's keep them silent, about the meeting you had with mobility. Is that something we should bring up here?
Let's talk, it's not on the agenda, let's talk about it after,
Okay,
after the meeting.
okay.
Can, and this might be off topic, but in general, can sites be somewhat cleared and trees removed and roads constructed without special permit?
Yeah, I mean.
Okay.
Property owners free to do.
Yeah.
What, I mean,
What signifies
They need
site
other
development that needs a that needs a site design review and a special permit?
So in
Or
this.
would site development?
Well, in this instance, you know, it is a development, they are putting solar panels on the property, and part of that construction.
I think he's
is-
thinking global.
Main Street.
The fact that they're
Oh,
clearing
they're
stuff.
saying, yeah, I'm more than likely if they're doing testing for where the bedrock is, that's my guess.
Okay.
That's probably why they
And it's
cleared
my
some of the
ignorance.
areas.
You can,
But they certainly have, they're totally within their right to do that.
okay, I figured, and I'm not looking to cause trouble.
They would just need a pre-construction meeting, and then they would still need like the occupancy, which if they went on and did stuff without us doing it, then we
But
just.
what's
wouldn't sign
needed
it.
for pre-construction? It's not site development, it's more construction of a building, it's erection of structures, you think?
Well, it's a really good point.
No, like what if someone just wanted to clear cut
That's
a
my
lot?
point. What constitutes construction? And is clear cutting allowed?
I mean,
I don't know.
I know as, you can't
Don't
do
you need a
that.
tree permit to take down trees if they're close to the road? Is that what triggers
Only
it?
if it's a historic road.
Okay.
And they're within a certain,
I know you need a federal
Yeah.
permit if it's over an acre.
Yeah, you've mentioned that before, a
but-
long time ago.
Yeah, there's, if you disturb
Okay.
anything over an acre, you need a federal permit, because we have to get them all the time. But as far as local, if you just wanted to clear cut a lot.
I did
that-
the dickies, like a
Yeah,
swept and
that's right,
everything.
yeah.
Okay.
So just say that someone wanted to clear cut half a lot,
Yeah.
half an acre, sorry, half an acre. Would they have to do anything?
I would say no. I mean,
Okay.
in the
Unless
instance
they,
of,
well, Concom, if they were within wetlands jurisdiction.
oh, of course,
Then they
yeah,
would
right,
have to.
yeah,
right,
that's
But
right.
if they're outside wetlands
It's
jurisdiction,
an upland area.
and it's upland
Yeah.
area,
Not on the
and
road.
it's less than an acre.
The right of way or whatever.
Yeah, that's another, okay, and that.
Oh, and outside, it'd have to be within their private property, outside of, right away.
yeah.
Then, yeah, they could.
And off any of the endangered species maps.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. You
Yeah, I mean,
can't
there's a
trigger any
handful
of
of
that.
things that
Okay.
would
But
trigger.
you're right, if it's an
permits.
upland area that's wooded,
Go nuts.
they could do whatever they want,
Okay.
as long as it was
Okay.
less than an acre.
All right.
But that's,
that
I think
whole
that's an
area
interesting
there was
point though,
covered
of like.
I didn't know.
To the Bolton 2 solar project because they had done a lot of the clearing and placing of the loam before we had gotten out there. But I think in that instance, that had all been tied to our special permit and that was done before the construction oversight.
Well,
Okay,
And how much of that
okay.
clearing was done by Clear Summit
Yeah,
before it was even, before the project
Before
was
they got
even.
the special permit,
Yeah.
yeah, right. So,
unless there's anything else, I would seek a motion to dismiss.
I'll make a motion to dismiss.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned.
So what'd you think?
It was great.
You still want to be involved in this?
Yeah, absolutely. It was,
You got a good hearing tonight.
yeah.
This was a good one with all of the.
Very good.